All right, everybody, how is it going? Welcome to the Cheech and Manny Music Podcast, the People's Podcast. I'm Cheech Carrerio, and this is my co-host. What's up, my man?
What's going on, Cheech? How are you, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Day away from temple, a little relaxing, that kind of thing. Looking
Um,
forward to this. I've been on such a Dylan kick, dude. It's ridiculous, man. I can't stop with the guy.
no, it's crazy because once you get on the Bob Dylan train, it's kind of difficult. Well, a few things. It's kind of difficult to get off the station,
Yeah.
but also listening to other music, man. It's like when you listen to Rush, you listen to other things, and man, you can't go back.
Oh yeah. And before this is about Bob Dylan's what album is this? This
This is
eighth album?
this is the famous John Wesley Harding. So this is
What no, what number?
this would be his eighth studio
Right.
album.
John Wesley Harding. We're gonna get into it, and it's a very different album, mostly famous for All Along the Watchtower.
Right.
You know,
Now,
uh,
Cheese. Now, I just want to
yeah,
ask you. So I know because we pretty much we kind of collaborate when we do the order of albums to analyze. Because again, this is a
yes.
music show. We love classic rock. We love rock and roll. We have anything that has to do with rock. We at one point said that we were going to stop at the trio, right? So starting with bringing it all back home, Highway
Yes.
61 revisited, and
Mhm.
then coming out soon, Blonde on Blonde. Why do you want to continue to John Wesley Harding?
Well, because the past three albums that we did were all electric, and they're all phenomenal. Blonde on Blonde being the best one, I think. Highway 61 and Blind on Blonde, are my two favorites. Uh, Mainly Mike Bloomfield, because of Highway 61 and Al Cooper. Uh, the next one, John Wesley Harding, is he goes back to his roots, and he's a folk musician again. So after all, this is what you got to love about Dylan. All this crazy shit, Newport Beep, Newport, folk festival. Pete Seeger gonna smash Pete Seeger's gonna smash the PA. He's electric. Johnny Cash is egging him on. Then he goes back to it. After all that, he's just like whatever.
I know, it's crazy. And
I think he went back to it knowing what was happening.
right,
This is 1967,
right.
the beginning, and I'm going to name the albums that come out. It's insane. The beginning of probably the greatest era of music,
Yeah,
starting from 67, Sergeant Pepper's, Are You Experienced,
right.
going up until friggin' until the 80s with Iron Maiden, from 67 till about 1987, 88.
Right,
That
right.
those 20 years for music in every genre, jazz, funk, heavy metal, classic rock,
Right,
those
right.
were golden years. So 67 is a very important year. Monterey Pop Festival. Hendrix comes on the scene.
Hendrix comes out, yeah,
You
and
know,
he revolutionizes electric guitar-driven rock.
mhm. Cream really starts to explode. A year. Zeppelin first album was 69,
No,
right?
not yet. But
Yeah. What was Zeppelin?
at this point, Jimmy Page, and again, don't fact check me. This is just again, we're not. This is not
Yeah.
academic, but I know that Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, at this point, either were session musicians or already in the Yardbirds, kind of.
This is a Joe Silkman question. I think we're in 67 now. Page might have been he's in the Yardbirds because he leaves the
Yeah,
Yardbirds
yeah.
to start the new Yardbirds,
Right,
which
right,
was Led
right.
Zeppelin.
Yeah, because the Yardbirds already existed, and then Jimmy was already, and then he ended up kind of like fronting it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then that will lead to the creation of
And,
Led Zeppelin in
oh, so going to
69.
the Yardbirds, I think this is my history. Don't blank check me on this. Eric Clapton is in John Mayhall's band right now. They're
Hmm.
writing Clapton is God in 67, and the Jeff Beck group starts.
That's right.
And Jimmy Page is in the Yardbirds.
That's right.
So, and then Cream is about to explode in
They're
that
about
short
to.
term that they have.
Yeah.
And this, pre Zeppelin, pre Sabbath, pre Mountain, pre all the like Grand Funk. I don't even think Grand Funk was out yet
No,
in
I don't think so.
'67.
Not
Think
yet, but
Mountain
they were probably and kind of like
just starting to come up in
started.
'68, '69. Yeah, yeah. Janis and the Doors might have been creeping up. I think Janis Joplin and the Doors maybe were out in '67. I know Airplane, Jefferson Airplane was. I got the list, so we'll go
Well,
through that.
I will no, and I will say I love what you said about, and obviously me, I'm a Beatleologist, so
Yeah.
I have so much information on the Beatles, dude. Sergeant Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band is a game changer. Like
Oh
it
my
gets released at
goodness.
this time,
Yeah.
and it's funny how Dylan was already changing the game in like 65, 66,
Yeah.
then releases a strange acoustic
I,
uh, folk
he,
record so stark. And if you compare that to Sergeant Pepper is going to move things forward.
uh-huh.
Um,
Oh
Dylan's
yeah.
like, yeah, let me go back to my roots at this time.
Yeah, Sergeant Pepper, Are You Experienced? Just really gears. I mean, it's the opposite of what Dylan is doing, and Dylan is being sneaky. He's like, I'm not doing this. It's almost like he knew what was going to happen.
Right.
He knew that the psychedelic bands were coming up, and all these great bands were going to blow up from '67 to '70. Or, think of all the great
Right.
just in that 3 year period. The
Oh
Allman
yeah.
Brothers, Led Zeppelin,
I,
Sabbath,
dude,
Pete.
I would say from like 65 to 1969, and especially that 3 year period, this is the golden, I think one of the golden ages of
Oh
like
yeah,
rock music. And then when Dylan releases Wesley Harding, the
hmm
height of psychedelia.
yeah,
Like
and
Pink
not
Floyd
one.
released their album at
The
the
Pipers at the
Gates of
Gate.
Dawn, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
psychedelic,
yeah.
really awesome.
Barrett. Yeah, yeah. I got the list. Let me just before we start, just want to throw a couple things out there. A couple of rest in pieces to David Johansen.
I saw
You
that. Rest in
know,
peace.
from the New York Dolls, or Buster Poindexter. If you were in the '80s, how we transitioned to that was crazy. He went from a punk to this character, and then one of my all time favorite female singers, Roberta Flack.
Rest in peace.
Rest
I
in
saw that
peace.
too.
She was just an amazing. If you don't know who she is, check her out. "Killing Me Softly with Music," one of my favorite songs. Um, Shout out to Potter's Field. Love you guys. And then just a thanks to Tom 90 Tom 927 for the nice compliment. Uh, really appreciate that. Bobby, thank you for the compliment. And Mr. Silkman gave you the best compliment, like the Dylanologist.
Oh, dude, what a title! I mean, I'm not even worthy. I'm just like,
You are.
I just like love Bob Dylan. Like, I don't know, something about his music. I love something. I think it's just something, yeah, about his lyrics and music, especially during this time period. Like,
Yeah,
and you knowing like how much I love looking into, religion, philosophy, theology, psychology. I think Dylan just manages to capture that spirit in a way, especially like on Highway 61 Revisited. And
yeah, oh yeah.
I like his dark lyrics. Sometimes
I
they
mean,
can be bleak, but
yeah. What I love digging for the meaning. That's like my
that's,
new.
yeah, exactly.
I was never a lyric guy. I never was, unless something spoke to me. But now I'm digging. Now I'm finding it so challenging to find out what does he mean here. What does that mean? Rush was always easy. Rush I knew because it's in my DNA. I
Right.
knew with Neil. I didn't have to dig that hard for Neil. But Bob Dylan is in the beginning. Yeah, I was struggling. You go back to the first couple first album we did.
Right, right.
I didn't get it, and then I was like, oh, I get it now.
And I think it's important to understand that with any new, and I encourage, all our listeners out there that listen to Bob Dylan. A good place to start is now we're going to be going past the awesome trio, electric trio that he released.
Yeah,
We're going to begin with John Wesley Harding, which can be a challenging listen if you're not used to that style. But
yeah.
I think you and I both agree that Blonde on Blonde is probably a great place to start because I think we
Yeah,
discovered how amazing the
that's his.
songs are on that
That's his
album.
Sergeant Pepper's. That's his Moving Pictures.
Yeah, yeah,
That's his. You know, masterpiece.
Yeah,
And it took him a couple albums to get there.
exactly.
And of course, every musician has somebody who does it. I think Bob Johnston, the producer, is like his Terry Brown because he
Yeah,
keeps,
yeah.
you know, and of course Al Cooper is the man, on Blonde on Blonde. He's the guy. Now Al Cooper is not on this album because Al Cooper's formed Blood, Sweat, and Tears at this
Right,
point.
right,
So
right.
he's out, being, what's his, John, no, God, Paul, I can't think of Mike Bloomfield is now out with Paul Butterfield.
Right.
So he's got some good players on here. He's got a hell of a rhythm section, I must say, which I'm going to get to. But first, before we move forward, just a quick, sorry for if people think I'm hating on Jack Black. I mean Jack. Sorry, Jack White. Um,
Yeah, you said Jack Black. Now, wait. Do you hate Jack Black too?
I love Jack Black. School of Rock. You
Tenacious
gotta love,
D.
huh?
Tenacious D.
Gotta love him. I meant to say Jack White. Um, and I don't want to come across as a hater. It's just that there's a couple reasons why I'm not a fan of his music. Respect what he does, but not having a bass player, I wasn't a fan of. And then he was in the movie This Might Get Loud, and I just felt his like his ego in there. Okay, it's cool to have an ego, but when you're with Jimmy Page, you should be like, oh my God, I'm with Jimmy Page, but whatever. So no, not putting Jack Black down. I'm just not a fan of his music. I respect him. I think he's a good musician. So, and maybe he'll get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Somebody will be happy, in the world.
If it's for fan of White Stripe fans out there. See, I
Yeah.
like the White Stripes.
Mhm.
They have a few songs like I think I was sharing with you. Icky Thump was
Yeah.
I like how great the guitar riff, and also he had this really cute acoustic number or like very you know how on the electric guitar you can kind of instead of going distortion you can go clean sound.
Yeah.
There's this cute song um we're gonna be friends, which I always loved because it was in this movie called Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, I
So
love that movie.
so I didn't even, do you remember the song in the
Hey,
beginning?
for president.
Yeah, right, Pedro for president. Do you remember the song in the beginning?
No, it's been like a billion years.
So if you rewatch the movie,
Yeah.
um, it's called I Think We're Gonna Be Friends, and I had no idea that it was by Jack White and the White Stripes.
Mhm.
No idea.
Yeah.
I thought it really cool. I love the songs. So there's a few songs, and
Yeah,
obviously,
send it to me. I like to hear it.
yeah, yeah,
And it would make sense because he was really popular at that time when that movie came
yeah,
out.
yeah.
You know,
And
and
that
I think
song is so sweet too. Like it's really good. I recommend it. I think we're gonna be friends by the White Stripes. And then just one more thing. And then I just for the record, I don't hate Nirvana. I know that's another one that
you
I
see
was
what I
watching.
sent you. You see what I sent you today? I was in CVS.
You're like, dude, where's Rush? No Nirvana hate. I will admit, I don't know if you would agree with this, but I just want to say for the record, I love Nevermind. I do consider it one of the greatest albums of all time, and it's a classic rock record. Like they,
Oh yeah,
you
there's
know,
some great.
I grew up with Nirvana too, so I love
Yeah,
Nirvana. But I think I know you have a hate for Nirvana for reasons, but it's not really a hate. It's what happened. Like if you I wasn't there. I was just being born. You lived it. Like
yeah.
you know,
No,
you don't hate
destroyed.
Nirvana, right?
Yeah, it destroyed my music, and it destroyed a couple of my favorite bands that were going to break that year. Like Fate's. I always say Fate's Warning. Uh, to the little munchkins out there, listen to Fate's Warning. For prog rock. You know what I mean? Prog metal. But anyway, yeah, it destroyed their album Parallels, in my opinion. Could have made them as big as Queensryche and Dream Theater, and I think
Right.
they're much better than them two bands in my humble opinion. Fate's Warning. Can't stop. It's not funny. We're doing Bob Dylan, the complete opposite of Fate's Warning, and it's like we're talking.
Especially on this album because it's the complete opposite. It's
Oh
not
my
even.
God,
We're, go,
left.
we're, we're gonna strip it back.
We are. So Let's talk about 1967,
1967, folks.
which is a very important year. And we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier. This is the year it all begins, I think, for heavy metal, hard rock, metal.
Rock we're gonna
Yeah,
know it.
what's gonna lead to. So here's some of the bands that come out. The Doors' first album, Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experience, The Byrds, Younger Than Younger, Buffalo Springfield, Again, one of the greatest albums of all time, The Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's,
Yep.
Kinks, Something Else, The Who by Numbers. I mean, this is amazing. Mother of Invention, Zappa, that
Oof.
comes out. What a year. Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love, Pink Floyd, Pipers at the Gates in the Syd Barrett era.
One of my personal favorites.
Cream, just really gears. And this one I put on because it reminds me of my uncle who passed away, and I love this album. The Young Rascals, Groovin'.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Small Faces, free from the beginning, and then the Turtles, Happy Together. Who
Right.
does not like that song?
Iconic song. So
You
good.
know, there
Oh,
was a couple. There might have been a. I know I missed a few.
while you're thinking, I think the Velvet Underground, their self-titled
Yeah,
debut comes
that's it.
out.
And there's a few more too. The Velvet Underground and some other iconic ones that I had in another piece of paper that I can't find right now. But
And Cheech, just so you know, because I think we're the rock experts. Just kidding, but we're the what if you of all the greatest albums that came out this year, what do you think was the greatest?
ooh, that's tough.
There's a lot.
I'd have to go with Jimi Hendrix. Are You Experienced? I think that was.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely say you being a metalhead, especially because Hendrix
I mean,
is
that
so influential.
about the songs on that. Fire. Hey Joe is
Yeah,
on that. Steve. Purple Haze. Manic Depressive. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything. Then I would go with obviously I'm not gonna even put the Beatles in this because the Beatles are God. Beatles number one, Sergeant
I,
Pepper's. I'm
I was gonna
excluding the
say like,
Beatles
and
because
my pick, you're ready now.
yeah, I'm excluding the Beatles because we already know they're number one. And then I would say Cream, just really gears because
I'm not
that's
gonna, that would be my close number two because I love what they did on that album.
Sunshine of Your Love. Jesus,
Oh, forget about it. Just that song alone.
I, and the
Oh,
rumor has it.
Mr. Fantasy. Jeez, Mr. Fantasy.
Oh, that came out too.
Yeah, that's Steve Winwood's band.
That Traffic came out that year.
Traffic. Yeah,
Wow,
that
a
album
lot
is
of
so
good.
good.
And then the Monterey Pop Festival.
Oh, who
Uh,
and who has like just because who was the famous performer that kind of stole the
well,
show?
the band I forgot, Jefferson Airplane came out
Oh,
this year too.
them
And
too.
maybe Dead's first album in '67, or maybe they came out
It's
in
possible.
'68. I could be. Deadheads don't hate me. I am. I might be a metalhead, but there's a Deadhead in here. And for the
Yeah,
Deadheads
I
out there,
think their fan base are.
for the Deadheads, I've always loved the Dead. They're actually in Portchester making a street after Phil Lesh. It's going to be called like Phil Lesh Boulevard near the Capitol.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I love the Dead, I've played in bands, and we would play Iron Maiden in one set, and friggin' Shakedown Street in the next set. So I love Phil Lesh, and I got to say, just off top, the greatest biography I ever read by any musician was Phil Lesh's book.
Hmm.
I recommend his biography. It's just phenomenal, his story. So
Why is that, Cheech? Why?
it just I was going through some rough time in my life, and when I read it, it resonated with me. You ever happen to you and you read something and it made everything make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah.
And I got
I've had,
I got
I've had. Good.
I got into the Dead so heavy in about 2006, 2005. Like I bought every album and went back and like just rediscovered stuff that I never would have listened to because I had I was in a Dead phase when I was in 6th or 7th grade, 'Cause I was just buying albums by how they looked. So I bought Killers and Dead Set on the same day at Corvettes in Portchester. And then, I remember putting Killers on and going like, "Oh my god, my life has changed." And then getting Dead Set, putting it on and being like, "Nope." And I threw it behind the couch. Then when I picked up the bass, I picked the album up again and was like, "Oh, this is I get it. I get it. It's two different styles." And but I love the Grateful Dead. We should pick a Dead album and definitely do one on
Well, I
Dead.
was gonna say before and a little earlier before coming here, I was humming the song. They have the album American Beauty, I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah,
So and that album is the least, I think, that's dead sounding album, because they were known for their jams and they're kind of
yeah.
like psychedelia. But there's a song on that I really love. Like, yeah, and one other song. Yeah, they have a bunch of really great songs. And they had one song. It's I'll tell you right now. I was humming it, and
Friend,
yeah, they
friend,
were formed
you
in
know about it?
California, which is really cool.
Friend of the Devil is a great song.
That's a
Uh,
good one. That's a good, very interesting song. And the one that I really
U.S. Blues, um, Shakedown Street.
Ripple.
Yeah, that's a
The
good.
song is so good. I was humming it like I forgot the lyrics, but I do this thing where I hum the song, kind of make up my own lyrics. But
How could we forget Casey Jones? I mean, what a great
all of them,
song.
those two
Yeah,
albums alone, we should definitely do a Grateful Dead episode for sure. So
yeah. And they were
Deadheads, watch out for that, Deadheads.
radio friendly band. That's how I learned about them too. Like growing up in the
Dude,
'70s.
Touch of Grey. I think that's one
Right?
of the most underrated songs like ever.
What a great bass. I mean, I cannot stop talking about Phil Lesh. I would put Phil Lesh up there with the greats. He's up there with Jack Bruce.
Oh yeah, as a bass player, and then
Yeah.
Jerry Garcia, just so iconic.
Oh yeah, his solos were so different and unique. And from Phil Lesh, I learned about avant-garde music, like Stockhausen and people like Charles Ives. So that opened up my ears to that whole thing. And Phil Lesh, I could go on for hours about Phil Lesh. So definitely got to do something.
Future Dead episode coming your way,
Def-
folks.
maybe put some comments about what album, maybe
That's
Working Dead.
a great idea. So if anyone's watching and you're a fan of the Grateful Dead, which album should we cover first? Which is their greatest album? I think we should start there.
Big Pigpen fan, the keyboard player who passed away young. Great band. So yeah, I think we covered everything in 1967.
Yes.
I mean, Buffalo, Springfield. I mean, some great. The Who by numbers. I mean, Jesus. Like,
It's just an iconic year of,
oh, sorry. The Who will sell out.
the Who sell out. Now, the Who
Yeah,
by Numbers is later, but the Who
yeah.
sell out comes out. But again, I think to understand 1967 is just the, I guess, when do you want to start the time period? There's so much classic stuff
Well,
comes in.
for psychedelic music and hard rock, it's 67. That,
67.
that
Okay.
that's Monterey Pop Festival. That's where it
No,
started.
and that would make sense because even the Who sound, they being innovators as they were.
Change.
Yeah,
And there
and
was
great year.
psychedelic. There was a lot of psychedelic, Cream and all these psychedelic kind of bands. And then by 69, Zeppelin and Sabbath come out. 70, Deep Purple. It's all hard rock.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah,
changes. And then the 70s come and it's like the James Gang, Mountain,
yeah,
Free,
yeah.
Trapeze, Bad Company.
Right.
All these great bands that make the 70s rock so amazing. So
And so 1967, we're in the height of psychedelia.
yep.
Then Dylan releases John Wesley Harding. So I guess just to get us started, I know where you're heading. So, and I'll just quickly. So Dylan was literally a rock star. Like by the time he released his long play, but his double album. And by the way, for the young folks out there that don't know what a double album is, um, Blonde on Blonde, which we talked about, obviously timeline's off for us, but you'll see the episode. Artists would release two pretty much like massive amounts of music on like two vinyls.
Yep.
So his double LP, his 1966 double album masterpiece, Blonde on Blonde. His star rises to the point where, I mean, Bob Dylan ruled at one point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so
I would say
normally,
he was
what?
right behind the Beatles at one point.
Oh,
That's why.
it's funny. That was their. If anything, they were the competition, and I think that would make sense why Simon, Simon and Garfunkel like gonna do that parody song because they're like, man,
Yeah,
really, Dylan, really, like we're struggling here, like what about us? But so you would think again, he's full of first double
yeah,
album,
yeah.
first folk electric, folk. I mean,
Great.
even like first, I would argue apart from Elvis, right? Um, Sort of like Dylan became the mysterious rock star, right? Like he was everything.
Well, you had Johnny Cash first.
No,
Johnny
but
Cash.
Johnny Cash was country, dude.
That's true. That
So
is
he's
true.
not really rock. He's the man in black for sure.
Just
But
look at it as a like punk rock outlaw rocker, but he is country. He's not rock. He really
no, if anything, in the country world, he's the Bob Dylan equivalent. He's the
yeah,
punk, where he doesn't play by their rules.
yeah,
And so I don't really classify him as like, like of course he's a rock star, of course.
yeah,
But Bob Dylan really created this idea of the rock star.
yeah,
Elvis was the godfather, right? The influence, who, by the way,
yeah.
will influence John Lennon, for example, the Beatles, and then Bob Dylan. So he's going on this meteoric rise, and Cheech, what happens?
He blows up with these three electric albums, and then after going through all the problems at the Newport Folk Festival, and then all of a sudden he does a folk album. He goes back to his roots on this album, like
In 1967. Yeah.
because he didn't want. He knew he was almost like I always talk about Nostradamus. He was like a Nostradamus. If he did another rock
100%.
album in '67, if he did another rock album, it would just be another Cream or Who or Jimi Hendrix. But he didn't. He put out a really good. It's like I describe what it is. I'm gonna talk about the elements in it. It's like a little bit of country, just good songs, folk, spiritually,
Yeah.
spiritual,
Americana.
Americana, blues, that kind of thing. Always the blues is always there.
Yes, yes. And by the way, the blues influence is very this time. There's only like one song where I kind of heard the obvious blues sound, but again, and we'll talk about it when you talk about the music of the album. But and just one more thing, Cheese. So it's interesting because let's say Dylan continued the electric train.
Uh huh.
What would he have done? You think?
How could you top Blonde on Blonde?
I know that's the
I
problem.
I can't. It's a good AI question. you know, Make an album electric for Bob Dylan after Blonde on Blonde. See what it sounds like. You know what I mean? I think it would have just been Blonde on Blonde Part Two. You know what I mean? Like what a lot of bands do. Cause like like I'm comparing them to Rush in a way. Like after Moving Pictures, what did they do? They did Signals, and they were kind of moving in a different direction. So they even changed. You know, so like it's a masterpiece. So he was Nostradamus. He did not want to be a part of this. As they used to call it, acid rock.
Right.
It was the term the old fogies used to call it. I had an old teacher in college that referred to it as. I had a Jimi Hendrix shirt on once, and he's like, "Oh, you listen to that acid rock?" And I came home. I was like, it might have been in high school or something. I said to my mother, "What the hell is acid rock?"
Acid rock.
That's what they used to call it.
And I would suggest let's keep it like G, but
Yeah,
there's a reason why
yeah,
and I think also aside from acid rock and psychedelic rock, the
yeah,
rise
yeah,
of the hippie movement was on the
yeah.
rise. The summer of love.
Summer of Love is '67. Is that when it starts?
That's a good
Summer of
question. I think
right?
so. I think so.
and it ended in Woodstock. 70,
Yeah, dude,
69.
San Francisco, 1967.
Here's the summer of love. So here's the whole hippie movement. The girl with flowers in her hair. Not only with music, but kids started to open up to other things which we won't talk about, but like literature, poetry. It was becoming like a renaissance, a revival for about 3 years. Tolkien was popping up again. People were reading Crowley. People were getting into different kinds of spiritualities in the Indian spirit spirituality. I always say, what's the book? I always say it wrong. Vugu.
The Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, it was like that was all taken off, and everything was just cool, and the hippies were, and then of course, God forbid, you had the worst thing happening. The Vietnam War was like at its peak.
Which was in the middle of it. And you know what's funny? We'll talk about it. Bob Dylan. I have my own theory about the song "All Along the Watchtower," but and for our viewers out there, if you love a little bit like American history, by the time the '70s roll around, and it was already happening in the late '60s, a dark turn. I think
Yeah,
the whole Summer of Love, it was very idealistic, but instead it turned really dark. Drug overdoses, drug abuse, everything got dark, and the pinnacle was the Rolling Stones Altamont Rock Festival,
Altamont.
where
Yeah,
they tried to Altamont, I think it's called,
Altamont. Yeah,
in
Altamont.
California, where they tried to
Right.
replicate Woodstock, and it was just a complete failure. Something
Yeah,
happened in the American conscious that
yeah.
so Dylan kind of, and again we'll talk about it, but I think, and again this is a
Here's
theory, but
why wasn't Dylan at Woodstock?
I don't think he didn't want to tour anymore. He was done.
Yeah, yeah.
He gave that up, and he won't do it until many in late in the '70s, like 73, 74,
Yeah,
and then he started the Rolling Thunder Review, and then started what they call the Never Ending Tour, and he's been on tour, whatever, but
yeah,
some the touring for Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61 Revisited pretty much traumatized him, and it's funny because the Beatles will end up doing something similar. So there was
yeah,
sort of Bob Dylan mania in a way, but
yeah,
but Beatlemania had all the girls screaming. Bob Dylan mania had the critics chasing him. He became like the voice of the generation, and
yeah,
I think he couldn't take it. I think it just he too much pressure on a
yeah.
22-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine? And
Yeah,
also, Blonde on Blonde, he got married and he started to have kids, so he wanted to like be, more of that kind of life, opposed to being a rock star on the road. So that was another issue too. But yeah, let's jump. We'll jump into it.
let's jump in.
So after a long hiatus from a motorcycle accident, that he had, he returned to a simple form with his eighth studio album, John Wesley Harding. Name, I think it's spelled. How is it spelled? Harding, like
So,
H-A-R.
so apparently, so it's John. So on the album, it's John Wesley Harding with an ing, but the original name was Hardin,
Yeah,
Hardin, and it's
and
based on an outlaw. But
yeah,
apparently it was a typo or something. They were just left in there.
he was a famous outlaw. I'm going to talk a little bit about him because I'm an Old West. Me and my brother-in-law Rob are Old West historians. We've been to the OK Corral and all that stuff.
That's
So,
cool. I love that those stories and movies,
oh
like especially
yeah,
the old
this
westerns.
guy, he was no joke. You know, he was up there with Jesse James and Billy the Kid. Um, so he returned to in 1967 to a simple album with folk and country and spiritual types of music. It was different from the last three albums that he did. A year had passed before he started to work on the album. So, let's talk about the accident. So, in 1966, he got into a motorcycle accident and he took a break from touring for 5 years. Now,
Mhm.
um, while he was recovering, he started to work with the band. So, I'll just stop right there and we'll just talk about the motorcycle accident. So, I don't know much about it. I just know he got to a motorcycle accident, and I don't know what he injured. I don't know if he broke his leg. I don't know. I know he was messed up for a while.
It's funny because when I first got into Bob Dylan, I watched this Beatles documentary, and he was saying that there was sort of a there's some like moments in rock and roll history where it marked sort of either a shift or change. So, for example, Elvis being shipped off to combat. Remember
Yeah,
the death of the Big Bopper and Richie Valens and all that, and then the Beatles stopped touring, and then also like the Beatles breaking up. And then
yeah,
Dylan's motorcycle accident is considered one of these mythic moments where and that really marked a change in American rock music. And
yeah,
apparently, his and again we don't. There's a lot of mystery with this, but he lost control of his motorcycle. All right, this is in 1966. He fell from it. He suffered facial laceration, so his face got really messed up. He broke vertebrae in his neck, and he even got a concussion.
yeah. So he was messed up. He was messed up.
Yeah, and then after this, what ended up happening? This and it's funny. We'll talk about it. Some people say, "Did this really happen?" Like, what
Yeah, there's a lot of.
excuse?
Well, the reason why is he was put under so much pressure to write by the label. And this album, is what's his manager, Albert Grossman.
Mhm.
Um, who I love, the guy who played him in the movie. It was such a great, when I think about the movie, I think of
Oh,
his
yeah, it was really great.
uh they were putting so much pressure on him to keep writing. So he purposely wanted a break. He didn't want to, he wanted a year and a half off or whatever, Blonde on Blonde, it was like a whole year or two with the accident, or a year and a
Right,
half.
right.
He needed a break because he was probably running out of ideas. Um, and it was kind of like hey, record label, I got into an accident. Too bad. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
So, he definitely did. I don't think he faked it. I
right.
don't think you could fake, or who knows? Who knows with him?
Well, it's funny because a
Yeah,
lot of folks think it's made up, and it was so it's so odd because it kind of coincided also with his withdrawing from public eye. It's like he would
yeah.
stop touring, so any chance that he would show up on stage became sensationalized because
Oh
he just
yeah,
stopped. And I love this because he sort of became a legend and a reluctant star, but
yeah.
um that this motorcycle accident became sort of like his the excuse or catalyst to kind of, all right, I need to get away from it all and clear my head. And then I got to reinvent my music because
Yeah,
I can't, I just, this cannot be sustained anymore. And we got to remember, like, he was in his early 20s.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
About
yeah, I could
23.
see, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and
And
he already
good.
did so many things in those past 5 or 6 years that most people don't do in a lifetime.
Yeah.
So he was like, I need to get married. I want to have kids, and people got married young back then. Like that was the thing. Like my parents got married when they were 19 and 20. Popped me out when they were 20 years old. Going back to Plant, he was married. Bonzo was married, all in their early 20s. That
Makes
was
sense.
the thing in the 70s, in the late 60s, and a lot of people got married to not go to Vietnam. Once you were married, popped a kid out, you didn't go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
So, there's that too.
And it's
Um,
funny because at this point um, he didn't marry his true love as we would
yeah,
discuss. Instead, he did love Sarah Lowndes. I hope I'm not butchering her name, which
yeah, yeah,
becomes the subject matter of so much songs. So I
yeah,
think it just coincides. It's just an odd coincidence that everything fell into place for Dylan to sort of reinvent himself, right?
yeah,
And again, I think I don't know if you want to keep talking about the conspiracy aspects of it, but I think you and I agree that it did happen. Like I think this,
yeah,
it's sort of like I think it's sort of like a shooting star that kind of crashed.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
And
he
he made
didn't die, right?
he lived. Like look at Skinner. Like
Yeah,
Skinner
yeah,
at the peak of blowing up, and like Skinner is actually Skinner got, in my opinion, bigger when the plane crashed.
yeah,
The
right, right.
unfortunate sucks. You know, if Skinner kept going, they probably would have been as big as Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
either way. No. Um, but like Street Survivors came out, and then the plane crashes, and then they're just immortalized. So sometimes Stevie Ray Vaughan, he dies, he's immortalized. Richie Valens, you're on another level when you die. You
In the movie world, James Dean,
know. Mm-hmm.
when he
Yep.
saw again, it's all these strange. Again, what I guess I'm pretty sure Bob Dylan's grateful that he lived.
Oh
So
yeah, he's
it,
lucky.
it,
Died, he would have been like Jim Morrison, Janis. He would have been
yeah,
Hendrix.
yeah.
He would have been one of those.
Which is brilliant, and it's brilliant what you said because he is sort of like he's sort of like a Nostradamus, or like he always sees into the future, and that's why I think like, and we'll discuss this song all along the Watchtower, which is this apocalyptic. He's
Oh,
always ahead of the game, and
and,
he has
and
another great song, "I Dream of Saint Augustine," which I'm oh
oh,
man,
oh,
we're gonna
so
talk
so
about that song, but
so
there's spirituality of it.
and maybe yesterday was Ash Wednesday, I believe. So
It
right
was,
was so
it was,
this
yeah.
episode is going to be dedicated. There's a lot of Bible references, which you're going to
I
have fun with.
know. I
It,
always
it,
tell Cheech, I don't know if you would agree with me. There's with Bob Dylan, and I say to him, oh, I'm going to give one shout out to my new subscribers out there, which remember People's Podcast, but the people have to be a secret, huh? Um, I always say that with Bob Dylan in his lyrics, especially there's sort of like a Catholic, like biblical thing to him that I've never noticed before.
yeah, yeah,
Saint Augustine is one of the greatest Catholic philosophers, theologians, and saints. So it's kind of interesting how he's saying, "I dream of Saint Augustine," and we're going to read the lyrics. And I think, and also I think also with Bob Dylan during this time, especially with like the blonde on blonde craziness, we talked about this. I think he was lonely. I think he always felt alone, and that's this pressure of stardom and trying. All right,
yeah,
when's the next album? All right, when is the next album? What's the
yeah.
next song? He's like,
And I
wait a
and
minute.
I
You need to
think
put meaning in this.
he had a lot of guilt. I don't know if he was a sinner or if he was going through something, because there's a lot of guilt in him. You know,
Yep, yep.
that's
And this
another.
pops up in John Wesley Harding.
Yeah. Oh, this pops up a lot, and he's ready to say goodbye to Albert Grossman. He's cause like there's a lot of things I got where he's referring to Grossman.
Yeah.
You know, he,
I
he's
and I love what you said about all along the Watchtower. That's one
yeah,
theory, and I like
Joker.
that because it makes sense.
He's starting to get ripped off by his manager and the record label Columbia. So he's starting to say that's why he needed a break, that kind of thing. So this is interesting, and we're gonna do this album. Where was I? So okay. Wait, oh, sorry. So he gets in the motorcycle accident, and then he took like 5 years off after that. But in the meantime, he recorded an album, and we don't know if it was before John Wesley Harding or after, with the band called the
Mhm.
Bass. And me and Manny think, we were talking earlier, it helped shape the band's sound by
Yeah,
playing.
right.
No,
And,
the
and you
because
mentioned no, and just you, dude. You mentioned, and I'm pretty sure maybe someone else wrote about this. Obviously, there are more smart Dylanologists out there and band fans. But one of the things that you unearthed was during the recordings sessions for Blonde on Blonde, Dylan recorded with the famous band, but he didn't like the what was coming out. He didn't
yeah,
like it, and he had to sort of. He did some recordings, and that later on would be changed to iconic songs. He went to Nashville, got new musicians, and then that was what. And obviously, on Blonde, there are some of those band backed tracks, a few, and we were trying to figure out, wait, is this a band back track?
yeah. It's really hard to find. It's hard to find. On that.
Yeah, no, and so we kind of were thinking before recording that, you know what? There's always been, and I don't think it's a theory, but Dylan shaped the band's sound.
I
So
think
I
he did.
think they weren't that good maybe before, or something was off with them. So
Yeah, yeah. They were young too, and they were just learning how to become a band. And
the
and then
band,
when the Big Pink album comes out, and like, right, is that the album, the Big Pink, right? And that, like, like, what year was that? 68.
about yeah, I think so. And it's funny, this "Wheels on Fire," which is on the Basement tapes, is on that
Yeah,
among other songs. So
So
it would make sense.
they're just phenomenal. They're no pun. They're a phenomenal band. The band, just Levon Helms, Rick Danko. What a rhythm section, and vocals.
One of my favorite songs, and I always say it's one of the greatest, religious song, but "The Weight,"
I love that song.
which I love that song so much. And I don't know, obviously Dylan, by the time of the Dylan influence, "The Weight" does have a strange Dylan-esque influence. The more I
It
was
total, it's a total Dylan influence when you think about it. Yeah,
with the characters and the biblical imagery and the
yeah.
surrealness,
They
it's
learned a lot from Dylan. Dylan was like their teacher in a way.
yeah,
So the band was like, his baby in a way, and he couldn't be in that. He couldn't be in the band because the band was the band. He couldn't be
right,
like Dylan in the band. Dylan is Dylan. The band is the band. They had such a sound, a swampy, down home kind of sound. So put your opinions in the comments. Do you
yeah.
think that the Basement Tapes came out first? I mean, were recorded first because they came out in '75, or did John Wesley Harding was recorded first, and then he was kind of deciding what should I do? Should I, But then he'd have to go on tour with the band. But then the band was like, no, we're recording our new album, Big Pink or whatever. So,
Right.
but maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. So after his recovery, he recorded the Basement Tapes. That was released in 1975. We just said I have a question mark why, and we just kind of talked about why.
Mhm.
Um, then then he went to Nashville with Bob Johnston, and Bob Johnston is like Terry Brown, I gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he comes up with the ideas. Bob Johnston was like, yeah, on Highway 61. You got to go to Nashville. Got to go. The manager was like, hell no. Let me just shut my door quick. Why is it always windy when we do these episodes? It's like crazy, right?
The
Uh,
paranormal influence. Oh, dude, you know what's one final thing about the Basement Tapes before we move
yeah.
on, and him being Woodstock, New York. I mean, in a little bit, Woodstock is going to
Yeah.
become the. So again, Dylan's always strangely ahead of the. I don't know, like you're saying, because he was holed up in Woodstock, New York, in that they call it the
Woodstock.
Pink House.
He lived in Woodstock, and I have a story about that in one of the songs. It's funny. That's where he got into the accident in Socrates, I think.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been there. It's really cool. Woodstock.
No, no, it's on my bucket list. I definitely have to
Oh,
go.
it's great. It's great. I've been to the farm, Yasgur's farm, and everything.
Oh, nice. Is it like a museum?
It was at the time. Yeah, it was like maybe 20 years ago. I went. And it was just like there's two Woodstocks. There's the actual Woodstock concert. I don't think took place in Woodstock, and then there's like the touristy Woodstock.
Right.
Kind of like Salem, Mass, where you can go to the real Salem, Mass, where it happened is like 2, 3 towns over, and then there's the
Right.
commercialized,
That makes
thing.
sense.
Yeah. So once again, Bob Johnson says, "Why don't we make this album simple? Why don't you just do a trio? Do a trio." He puts that idea in his head. I don't know if he said go folk, or maybe the material that he was writing, Johnston kind of got that. So
Right.
the idea of Johnston was like, why don't you be like that band from Canada that's going to come out in a couple years and be a trio? Bob Johnston was like
He was
Nostradamus.
ahead of it. Maybe he was ahead of the greatest band in the galaxy, Rush.
Yeah, there's a band that's going to come out in like 1974. You should try, record like them. Sorry, Joe.
You know what's funny? You know what happened? And again, don't fact check this. What I think happened was Bob Johnson went to Canada and went to getting
Here's,
Alex high
here's
school.
these cool kids playing in the garage. John Rutsey and a guy
I
named
was gonna
Al.
say he was chaperoning maybe for like his daughter's dance or whatever, and saw this band. He was like, "Yo, these let me bring this idea back to my man Dylan."
Yeah. So he gives them that idea, and then this is pretty amazing. So they go to Nashville. Rhythm section is made up of Charlie McCoy on bass, who is starting to become like my favorite bass player because the guy's tone and his choice of notes and his rhythm is insane. And Kenneth Battery is the drummer. I forgot there's a pedal steel player on here too. I have his name on my other notes. So it's basically guitar, bass, drums, piano. Bob Dylan plays piano, and then the pedal steel player. He's in. I'm going to talk about him in a minute.
Yep.
Um, the album was recorded in 12 hours, man. 12 hours.
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I think we should pause here just to think about, and again, for
For 12 hours.
no, I know, and for anybody listening, like John Wesley Harding, I was sharing this opinion with you where the only song I listened to the album was All Along the Watchtower,
Yeah,
and recently, obviously for the show, I listened to it like 20 times and tried to dissect a few things about it. But the fact that this album was recorded in only 12 hours,
hours.
dude, even you know that's and if you
Yeah.
listen to the music, anybody
There's
out there, try recording
right.
an album in 12 hours.
I mean, when I've done albums and I've gone in the studio, you block studio time and you buy it in blocks. So you buy
Right.
like 4 hours. It takes 4 hours to set up the drums sometimes. Uh I mean Neil Peart, for instance, it would take him a week to set up his drums, to get a drum sound, a week. So imagine in 4 hours, like so you get the drum sound, you gotta book like about 20 hours or even more, 40 hours to if you're gonna do an album, you gotta book a lot of studio time with mixing and recording and overdubs and all that. So the average, I think I would spend maybe 30 hours in the studio to do like an EP. But 12 hours, it's like basically play and record, and no, he didn't overdub anything. Everything, and you
No,
hear
that's a sound.
the
Yeah.
production is raw, which I love. Bob Johnston didn't have to do a lot of work. The players knew their parts well. It's a little, you can hear some little things at the endings if they're not that sure, or Bob Dylan will end really abruptly. There's one song he ends
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
abruptly, like he's looking at the guys like end now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, the harmonica ends abruptly, almost in like
I,
every.
I think you see that in All Along the Watchtower, which ends so awkwardly. Like it
Yeah,
ends, it's not even a cliffhanger, just like it just
yeah,
ends. Like that song needed to be 3 more minutes. Like
yeah,
if it had a 6 minute runtime, that's what it needed. So it's
yeah.
funny because Jimi Hendrix, which we're gonna talk
Oh
about, Jimi
gosh,
Hendrix pretty much completes it and does that iconic guitar solo outro.
yeah.
Like
And he had all these psychedelic effects on it and stuff.
right.
Eddie Kramer also has a lot to do with that, but Hendrix,
Genius.
yeah, but Hendrix reinvented that song. Like,
Oh, and your boy McCoy, that's the bassist, right? He influenced Dylan's decision to go to Nashville. I think you mentioned this, to go to Nashville to cut Blonde on Blonde. So highly influential.
definitely, he is what, and people don't. I might have read about him in Bass Player years ago, and just kind of like, okay, yeah, he played Bob Dylan, but now I'm like, wow, now I'm getting it. Amazing thing about music, you keep learning. He had
Oh, oh, and Cheech, just one more. Did you talk about the music sound on the album so far? Did you talk about that?
um, well, the recording of it,
Well, the
or
sound of it, how it's more acoustic, laid
oh,
back.
oh, oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, the only reason why I ask is because I unearthed this quote where Dylan said, so you mentioned, so the only one, so you mentioned, yeah, he becomes a power trio. So Kenneth Buttrey, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and Charlie McCoy. And then Dylan said something interesting though. He said, I didn't intentionally come up with some kind of mellow sound. Actually, that wasn't the sound that he kind of was trying to pursue.
really. That's
In
interesting.
1971, in an interview, he said, I would have liked more steel guitar, more piano, more music. I didn't sit down and play that sound. So, in a way, maybe this album was a little rushed. I don't know if you would agree with that, but
I think it is, and you could just tell by the ending of the harmonica parts. Except there are some fade outs. It has a country vibe. It has the mellow folk vibe. It's spiritual, and to me, it's the '60s sound. It is epitome of what a '60s album sounds like. It really has that, and I'm gonna explain a little bit about
oh, from
the.
like from the sound engineering perspective, is that what?
No, well, no, just the songs. It just the way the musicians play, the bass tones, the drum sound, the production. Dylan is singing on some of these songs. Like,
Yeah, no, no. That's what's funny, and we'll talk about his vocals. We'll talk about his vocals because it's funny how you say that. And the other thing too with John Wesley Harding, with what you mentioned about the sound, is that this is again he's completely now shifting. So he goes back to his acoustic roots, but it's funny after this album he releases Nashville Skyline, which is country. It's a country album. Like he just does
well, you
a.
hear the
He,
country influence here on this album. You definitely
No,
hear.
this is the beginning. Like it still has that
Yeah,
folky edge to it with country, but it's marking a shift in his
yeah,
sound. So
definitely. Um, so the singles were "Drifter," "Escape," and John Wesley Harding, and "All Along the Watchtower," I think, which was the big one. Um, and "I'll Be Your Baby." That's an interesting one.
I like
I'll
that
be,
song, and
I'll
is
be your,
that the one that closes the album? I believe.
yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. Number two in the U.S., number two in the U.K. All Along the Watchtower becomes one of his most popular songs, like, of all time. I think next to Mr. Tambourine Man and Rolling Stone. So what I have here is I got some interesting facts. So Hendrix obviously made that song. He immortalized it. And I remember going back, and it took me a while to really get the Dylan version after hearing the Hendrix one, but now I love Dylan one.
No, and can I share? I listened to and for all our listeners out there, because a lot of our listeners, rock and roll is new to you. Go out and listen to, first of all, Jimi Hendrix. Has three albums which are iconic, but he covered All Along the Watchtower,
Yeah,
which it is the definitive version. And I remember when I went back and listened to the Bob Dylan version,
yeah,
I was like, wait, this is the original? It's so
yeah.
weak. I mean, it's not compared to what Hendrix did with it, but obviously, like looking, like if you re-listen to it now, it's amazing because
Oh
it's
yeah,
classic Dylan. It's
you
great.
listen to it for what it is. It's genius, Dylan. Um, so he named the album after Texas outlaw John Wesley Harding. Um, but Bob Dylan was really into outlaw bikers, and outlaw Western guys. He brought in Peter Drake on steel guitar to give it that country sound, and it's only on the last two songs. I wish there was more steel guitar on the album. I don't know how you
That's what
feel
he
about
said. That's what he said. He wished he added more.
it. It. Let me see. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna explain this. This is interesting. It was his last album to be monophonic. Do you know what that means? Monophonic.
Explain. I think I know. I think I do, but explain.
So, from what I understand, monophonic is it's coming out of one speaker. You know, so we used to turn the knobs on the speakers. You have two speakers, right? But technically, it's coming out of one speaker. So if you turn the knob down, you'll hear like the bass on one speaker, and then you turn it on the other side, you hear the drums on the other. So it's hard to explain. It's coming out in one speaker, and it's not in stereo. That's like my impression of it. I could be wrong.
Right.
um and then it's an audio, it's a single channel without a stereo separation. Like it comes out in one speaker pretty much.
Mm.
So if you turn off the speaker, you might not hear it in the other speaker. So after that, he only did stereophonic albums where you hear it all. Of course, my paper ripped. You hear it all in both speakers. Nowadays, for young kids, I don't think that they would understand stereo speakers. It comes out of a phone speaker or something you hook up to your phone, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's definitely monophonic. The sound quality coming out of a phone or a computer is not like an album. I'd rather hear an album monophonic than today's music coming out of a speaker, because it loses a lot of depth, I think. So the band is basically Bob Dylan. Anything else? Did I miss anything? It did go platinum in the USA, gold in the UK. Bob Dylan acoustic guitar, harmonica, and piano. Piano. He must have picked up something from Al Cooper, right? Peter Drake, who's a genius pedal steel guitar player, um, and Charlie McCoy, my boy, on bass. Kenneth Buttry on drums, and John Berg did the cover, which is, this album is so fascinating. Bob Johnston, the producer, and I thought Bob Johnston came up with the idea of a trio, but you said Charlie McCoy did. That's interesting.
No, no, no. McCoy inspired his decision to go to Nashville
Oh,
to record
okay.
Blonde on Blonde.
Oh no, no, that's what I meant. I thought Johnston wanted to go to Nashville.
This is something I found. I mean, I'm not sure, but
Yeah. So John Wesley Harding song. Um, so it's his interest in the Old West. Now, John Wesley Harding. I have a book of outlaws, and I dug
well,
out like
I was going to say because that's an important place to start. So, who is John Wesley Harding? And by the way, his name is misspelled on the album.
yeah,
It's actually no G, so Hardin. But who is he?
he's an interesting outlaw. Um,
And I guess we'll start there with the first track. If
yeah.
just jumping.
So
Okay.
for those of you people, maybe younger kids who don't know what outlaws are in the Old West, from about after the Civil War, late 1868 till about early 1890s, it was the real Old West, where there were cowboys and Indians, and they were like outlaws, like Wyatt Earp, to name a few, Jesse James, Billy the Kid, train robberies. They were just doing crazy stuff because they were poor and they needed to make money, especially like Jesse James. He was like a
Yeah.
Robin Hood. Billy the Kid was like 19 years old, and he was, robbing banks. So they were robbing trains and banks. Uh, Famous one is the OK Corral with the Earp brothers and the Clantons. So it's just like the old West. There's a lot of outlaws, and he's not a real famous one, but he's known. Um, I remember I think he shot a guy for snoring. It was in one of these old uh, commercials for these outlaw books that I bought when in the '70s. He was notorious. He killed 42 men. This is interesting. You might want to analyze this. He had a narcissistic behavioral disorder
Mhm.
and and difficulty regulating his self-esteem. I, I, I don't.
So that is a
Yeah.
toxic mix. Now tell me about his relationships because that is toxic. Yeah, that's
but,
bad.
but I mean, I thought you'd get a kick at it. This is one
Yeah.
biographer about him.
What was his relationships? Was he notorious?
Well, he killed 42 men.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't know.
I
Yeah,
don't think Jesse James,
narcissist.
in the total, most of these outlaws, Billy the Kid, maybe they killed 5 to 10 people. This is 42. This is like a lunatic we're talking about. You
Now,
know,
now, now, knowing this, and by the way, just I remember on the Bob Dylan song "Outlaw Blues," he goes
yeah,
like, I feel like Jesse James, but I feel like Robert Ford. So just like I
yeah.
think Dylan, like you, he kind of romanticized the West,
No,
but after you hear that
was his
John
name
Wesley Harding kills 42 men, you're like, yo,
Robert?
what?
Robert? You said Robert Ford.
I think that's the lyric again, "Outlaw Blues," which I love that
Who he
line.
is? He produced all the old westerns with John Wayne. I think he was the
Wait.
the producer.
Oh no, no, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. He goes, "Well, I might look like Robert Ford, but I feel just like Jesse James."
Right, right. And he's known for like making those movies. So just talk about that disorder. Like, what is
You
like
want
what
me to go there? Okay.
like
So I guess just to go back a little bit. So what did you say? What did the biographer say about John Wesley Harding?
narcissistic behavior disorder and difficulty regulating his self-esteem.
Well, yeah, that's pretty toxic because so I guess this guy to regulate his self esteem just killed 42 men.
Yeah.
um, but for
So he
those,
killed
go ahead.
natural killer. Like, is that something like Dahmer might have had, or
Well, Well, let's start with narcissism because yeah, dude, personality disorder that psychologists
Yeah,
discovered. It's
yeah,
characterized by a sense uh, of self-importance, a lack of empathy, psychopath, and an
yeah.
excessive need for admiration. So that would make sense. So if things don't go his way, his
Mm.
solution, since he can't regulate his emotions, I'll just kill you. Like, like,
Well,
and then
he does.
individuals like, go ahead.
He gets admiration either in the lyric or he was known almost as like a Robin Hood to the poor. So the poor
Well,
people.
and that's fascinating because Dylan immortalizes that, and again, just going back to narcissism, so grandiosity, entitlement, again, lack of empathy,
This guy
need
was,
for admiration.
he was the epitome of a outlaw. So he shot a lot of lawmen. So basically, out of the 42 people, he shot a lot of lawmen. He shot a lot of sheriffs, which is something I don't remember. Billy the Kid, I think, shot a sheriff. I mean, if you shot a sheriff, man, you were they were gonna hang you. Back then, they hung you. That was the thing. You didn't go to jail. I don't know how this guy didn't get hung, but he was in jail a lot, and he spent 17 years in jail. And then the crazy thing about him, when he got out of prison, he became a lawyer. He was not a dumb man. He was pretty smart. He got his law degree in prison, and then when he was playing a game of dice, somebody shot him in the back and
Right,
killed him. So he died kind of like Wild Bill. Wild Bill
right.
hit no, another one. For those of you, if you're interested in the Old West, I recommend looking up, obviously, John Wesley Harding, Billy the Kid, Jesse James, Wild Bill Hickok, the Earps, Doc Holliday. The Earps were lawmen. They
Right.
they were the opposite, but Doc Holliday is the greatest outlaw ever in history of outlaws.
No, and I would add just watch the old westerns. You can get a good sense, like the good, like Ennio Morricone's The Dallas trilogy, which is the good, the bad, the ugly. So you can kind of
Oh yeah.
see what the Outlaw West. I mean, I know it's from like the Italian perspective, but you
Was
can also watch John Wayne movies as well.
Yeah, Johnny Ringo was another guy. These
Great,
these
great
are
to see this. Yeah. So what? So this is interesting. So just looking at lyrically, but the song it's titled John Wesley Harding, but is it about him? Like is the song about him?
um I kind of got like I think it
Like
is
why do you think he titled this? Like why John Wesley Harding?
because he liked the old west, and John Wesley Harding was the epitome of badass, and Dylan was a badass, and he put the craziest outlaw on there. And I think this is from the lyrics. I either I got this from a biography. He was a friend of the poor, almost like a Robin Hood. Never,
That's in the lyric, yeah.
and this is from the lyrics. Never known to hurt an honest man. No man could track him or chain him down. Never known to make a foolish move. Just a simple song about an outlaw, a folk hero who was never known to hurt an honest man. So I think
So it's like a ballad for like a Robin Hood like character, but I guess he just used Wesley Harding just considering his like legendary background and what he
yeah,
represents.
and he's an interesting guy because not only did he kill 42 people and lawmen and sheriffs, he became a lawyer. So and he was that narcissistic, like the guy. And I'm curious to know,
You can't make this up.
these guys didn't live long. They didn't live long. If they made it to 30, I know Wyatt Earp lived. Pretty interesting story. I know we're getting into the Old West. Wyatt Earp lived a great life after the Old West. That he
Right.
became consultant on the what's Henry Ford movies. That his name, Henry Ford. The John
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 Ford? No,
directed
dude.
this.
So I think no, it's funny. think you confuse a thing there. John Ford is a director of classic westerns, and I think Jesse James, remember him?
Yeah,
He's the outlaw, Billy the Kid.
yeah. No. John Ford, when he was making the westerns in like
He's a director. Yeah, yeah.
1920s, they started to make these westerns. Wyatt Earp was still alive,
Hmm.
so they called him in as a consultant because they're like, we got Wyatt Earp, he knows this, and a young John Wayne met Wyatt Earp. Isn't that
Well, there we
crazy?
go. There we
So
go.
so any John Wayne movie, any if you
John
want to,
Ford, especially, insane.
great, one of the greatest westerns is Tombstone with Val Kilmer, Wyatt Earp, the movie Wyatt Earp, Silverado. Um, what's the one with Willie Nelson? Barbarossa. Willie Nelson plays an outlaw in it. Uh, I'm just
Dude, I'm
throwing
gonna, I'm
some.
gonna, I'm gonna add The Searchers and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, how could I forget those spaghetti
I love
western?
this. Dude, I consider myself in The Searchers. It's kind of corny, but what I get why Bob Dylan would kind of see himself as like a John Wesley Harding or Jesse James or,
Or
um, because I always see myself as this is corny, but I see myself with that John Wayne character in The Searchers,
yeah,
where you do your thing and then you're out back. Everyone forgets about you.
yeah. Well, the James Young uh, I think it's called the James Younger Gang. That's the movie. Another great one about Jesse James. There's been a few. Jesse James is probably the most interesting because he was a real Robin Hood. He was just getting back at the train robbers, and he did it was more of a Civil War thing because he was in this. I don't know if he was in Civil War. I know Brother Frank definitely was in Civil War, but
Right,
it was
right.
about robbing trains and that kind of stuff. So we're just getting off topic. Now we're doing a whole Wild West show. You know, when we do the Zeppelin show, we'll probably be talking about pirates when we do the Rover.
I
Uh,
was gonna say we're gonna go all over the place on that
yeah.
album. But
Anyway,
yeah,
so
great, interesting, great, good start so far. And then I guess you'll jump in musically,
yeah,
which, by the way, I think if I had to suspect, you're going to be following a pattern here about the music because there's
well,
not much variation.
I mean, there's a lot. But there is some interesting things going on. So musically, nice acoustic rhythm, great bass line. The bass line carries this song. It's a country style
Hmm.
bass line, great harmonica, nice chord progressions, different chord sequence, cool drum fills. Um, there's harmonica solo in between every verse. Just a nice simple vibe, and it ends with the harmonica ringing with that like extra, So that happens in almost every song, pretty much. Spoiler alert on the music if you never heard this album. Uh, okay, so the next one, as I went out one morning. This is a weird one. This is weird. This one. I might be wrong on this, but a man offers his hand to a woman in chains. She is meant to do him no harm. Tom Paine, a person, comments and yells at her, and he apologizes to the man for the woman's act. So, just that alone, what do you think that represents?
Hmm.
A
And
woman,
as long as
a woman in chains. Is that a woman who is being held down by a man who's not good to her? Is it could it represent, he's talking about the old west and a lot of these songs like slavery, something like that, you know what I mean?
right,
Something like
right,
that.
right, right.
Uh, so I don't know what to make of that, but this gets really interesting, and I'm going to need your help to see how true this is because I really researched it, and I don't know why Dylan would do this, but he won the Thomas Paine Award. Did you know that?
Yep, yep.
Okay. For civil liberties. Dylan won the Thomas Paine Award in 1963 from the National Civil Liberties Committee. Now, I don't know if this is fact or fiction, he was booed off stage. I hate to even say this, but for having sympathy for Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, why? Like, why? Why would he? It's something I never knew. I researched it. Dylanologist talked about it. It's in the facts. You could check it. But unless it's just false information, I don't know. And then Thomas Paine. I think he was one of the founding fathers, the
Yeah,
French
Tom Payne. Yeah,
revolutionary, a political figure, a philosopher. And to note, this is also influenced by a poem. I was going to send you this poem, but it was kind of hear it. It was kind of hard to hear it, but I got to send it to you. By W.H. Auden, a poem called As I Walked Out on the Evening. It shares the same I- iambic meter and form.
right, right.
The iambic is just the meter of his vocal style or his rhythm style.
I mean, like that. That's all. There's a lot of interesting background. I will say, from like my perspective, like the songs a little again. I don't know if you would agree with this. Many of the songs in the album sound unfinished, but in the best way
Yeah,
possible.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
if
Like
I
a
feel as
uh,
though Dylan could have took this in so many directions, and like you asked for my interpretation, and I'm just gonna jump ahead to like the third verse. Just then, Tom Paine, and again, I think that Tom Paine could be either that American founder or that award he got, like a little reference
yeah,
himself, came running from across the field, shouting at this lovely girl and commanding her to yield. And as she was letting go her grip, up Tom Paine did run. I'm sorry, sir, he said to me. I'm sorry for what she's done. So again, it ends kind of mysteriously,
yeah,
and I think you had it right that it's a narrative song. It's a man who offers a hand to a woman in chains, but realizes that she wants more than he's
yeah,
offering, and that she meant to do him harm, apparently, too, in the song.
yeah.
So I don't know if
And why
that's
would
commentary on what he did with that Lee Harvard Oswald sympathy thing he did. Um,
I mean that
and then you
class?
mentioned the poem. You mentioned poem. What was the poem? As I walked out one evening,
Yeah,
which obviously is the title of the song.
yeah. As I walked out on evening, by Whaudn Auden. And it's
Well,
the same.
if that's the case, the influence actually would be interesting because then he would kind of combine a few things here. Because I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't even know if there's like a meditation on like love or time or something too strange. As I went out one morning, and he
Yeah.
starts out the song with that. As I went out one morning to breathe the air around Tom Paine's,
So
I
he
spied.
quotes the poem.
In a way, he does, yeah. But instead of evening, he says morning.
Yeah, yeah,
So in a way, it's kind of like a play on that. But I mean, cool song for sure. But for me, it sounds unfinished.
yeah. There's not much. I mean, I don't know if the Tom Paine references to the award, like kind of, not keep it censored, to the award, and it's a civil rights award. It's like, but why would he be sympathetic for the man who like made this country so depressed? They killed John Kennedy. The guy, well, we could get into that. Supposedly he did. You know what I mean? It's not. There's a whole conspiracy theory on Oswald. That kind of thing. Did he shoot Kennedy? And who is the guy who shot Oswald? I forgot the guy's name. I should know this. Oh, and anyway, I mean, that's just my take on that song. So,
I
and
mean,
I had to.
interesting song lyrically for sure, but it does sound a bit unfinished. Now, I mean, again, and musically, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, um,
Oh, I don't know. It's not that it sounds unfinished. It's just like there's a lot of ways the song could have continued.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, this is the song I meant. It's a very 60s sounding song. It
Yeah,
has that 60s production, musician style, the way they play, the the sounds of the instruments. Great bass drives the song. You're going to hear that a lot. Great acoustic guitar. It has a great pre-chorus, great chord
yeah,
progression, great harmonica between each verse, great steady beat, and it's a great folk rock ballad. And I love the bass tone. The guy's got that. It's that epitome of that '60s bass tone, like Carol Kay. You know that Carol Kay tone that we talked
yeah,
about.
yeah,
It has
yeah.
that Carol Kay influence, and she was, Pet Sounds out. That was in '66.
Pet Sounds was already released. Yeah,
Yeah,
because the Beach Boys released, I think, this album called Smiley Smile, I think, or something.
yeah. So I think
This
he's playing in the Carol Kay Jamerson style, probably playing the precision bass.
right.
Now, this is gonna
Well, I was gonna
okay.
say, so Mrs. Doubtfire, what do you think? We're at hour 20.
Um, why don't we do this one and then we could stop. We only
Yeah,
did
just
two.
just just
This would be this would be only three songs. I know this is going to be in parts, but because this is a lot. I mean, I'm excited to do this one because, like, for Ash Wednesday and everything, maybe we'll, you know, get into the Bible course. You're the Bible guru, scholar, So uh,
such a high compliment.
I'm going back to my catechism days. I know a lot about the Bible, but like, I mean, I was reading, I was going back to like Genesis and the Ten Commandments and Cain,
Right,
Canaan.
right.
It's all in here. I dream I saw Saint Augustine.
So
Uh,
yeah, Saint Augustine, Augustine.
yeah, am I saying Augustine? In the month of
Yeah.
August. Yeah, yeah. Covered by Joan Baez and Eric Clapton. I don't know if you knew that. That was
No, that's cool.
uh. So before I dive deep and to take a deep dive into this, a sense of guilt and a vision of faith. Guilt is in the song. Uh, Saint Augustine of Hippo. He was not martyred when he
No,
died.
no.
The Vandals came and attacked. Where did he live?
Um, Hippo.
Hippo. Where
He
was
was.
that? What would that be in?
So like a little background.
Yeah, yeah, because like
Yes.
the Vandals were like a barbarian tribe, I would assume.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what ended up happening was, yeah, the Vandals, which were a Germanic tribe.
Yeah,
So it's funny, they had converted to Arianism, but I'm not going to go there. But they
yeah,
invaded Roman Africa, where he was, and the Vandals besieged Hippo. That's why he's called Augustine of Hippo in the
yeah,
spring of 430. And Augustine saw all of this. So he was already, like, on his deathbed, but pretty much they started to,
yeah.
um, yeah, take over Hippo, which,
Hmm.
um, I don't know if it was like in Roman North Africa.
Okay, okay. So he didn't die a martyr. He wasn't killed
No,
that. He defined. Tell me if I got this right. The concept of original sin.
yeah. So in the Catholic religion, he's highly influential as a philosopher and theologian, and he came up with the idea of original sin. Yeah, he kind of outlined it.
Mankind's ultimate guilt, and he was killed for his own sins in a way. You know what I mean? I guess. So
Well, he has
Dylan,
a big history.
I've
He
always
has a
heard you
huge
talk
history,
about.
and I love how you said about that guilt part.
Yeah, and that's going to come up with Dylan a lot. You know, I've
Like,
always
I
heard.
think this song is sort of like the guilt is pretty in there. And again, we kind of talked about this where he felt alone, and then just the fact that he let go of the one that got away. There's always that. Um, and I
That
don't
comes
know,
to,
do you know anything about? Go ahead.
the one that got away is a theme with Dylan. She's and Zeppelin too. It's always it's creeping up that one true love, and the one that got away. Um, so this is the thing I came up. Dylan compares himself to Saint Augustine as the saint of folk rock in this song. I think there's a metaphor where he's comparing himself as the saint of the man who put folk rock out there, and he
Okay.
the saint in that sense. This is my take on that. I don't know. Um, and also this song is linked to John. I sent this to you, John Milton. Methought I saw my late I'm bad. Esposed saint. Uh, did you read it? What I sent to you when I sent it to you?
Oh, I didn't get to no a chance to do that one now.
Okay, so it's linked to John Milton, and I'm saying it wrong. I saw my
Okay.
late ex, exposed. I think I can't read my own handwriting. Exposed saint. So it's basically about
Okay.
a man whose late wife, who passes away, comes to him in a dream, only to be
Hmm.
pulled away when morning comes. So he sees his wife in a dream, and this is just breaking it down. I mean, the poem is insane, just breaking it down, and like,
Right.
uh
Right.
you know in the dream, uh you know in the dream she goes back in the morning. And then I sent you that interesting thing about dreams from the forbidden knowledge thing I got. I sent to you last night about how our subconscious mind,
Mhm.
what is a dream, that old thing. So
Right.
I dreamed I saw Saint Augustine. uh what am I saying? I'm going backwards. Okay.
And again, I think it's just important to understand that. First of all, it's interesting how he mentions Saint Augustine of all people, because Dylan was not a Catholic, first of all, and the fact that he's dreaming of Saint Augustine, it kind of like this whole song is like a pensive ballad. Like, I don't know if you get that vibe. And what like when you look at the lyrics, um, I think a few kind of like really stand out to me, and just it's important to understand. Yeah, it's not any other Augustine. It's Saint Augustine of Hippo,
Yeah.
who, again, great, and his life was marked before he, ultimately became a bishop. I don't
Yeah.
even know he was a bishop. He had always a sense of guilt because he wanted to, follow Christ, but the problem is he had such lust and he couldn't let it go. But there came a moment where he let it go completely.
Yeah.
And so, just going back to the song, it's interesting because some of the lyrics are like, this song is probably one of the masterpieces next to All Along the Watchtower, where, just to read some of it, I dreamed I saw Saint Augustine as alive as you or me, tearing through these quarters in the utmost misery where he's at, with a blanket underneath his arm and a coat of solid gold, searching for the very souls whom already have been sold to sin.
Yeah.
And I think he's talking about himself a little bit there.
I
So
had
that's
that.
why he
I have that right in my notes. A blanket under his arm and a coat of gold, searching for the very souls who have been sold. He dreams he now this is weird. He dreams he put Saint Augustus out to death. Did you see that lyric?
is it the part that says, I dreamed I saw St. Augustine alive with fiery breath?
And then something that he puts him out to death. Is that in there?
Yeah, no, and yeah, and no, and it makes sense because, again, when you read, and by the way, a book I recommend, it's one of my favorites, is Saint Augustine's Confessions, where you can read about his conversion and sort of like
He was
his
a real
his
sinner.
guilt.
He was almost like a Mary Magdalene in a way, and he kind of just
In a way, yeah. In a way, yeah, yeah. He always struggled with sin. Now, ultimately, like, with God's grace, he like became the great Augustine and bishop. But it makes sense because so going back to the line that you said, this is Dylan choosing not to let Saint Augustine help him. So again, it's sort of like a cry for help in a way. This song's so fascinating because you're right. He says here, "I dreamed I saw Saint Augustine alive with fiery breath." Because remember, Holy Spirit, fire. Like usually
Yeah,
when the saints are associated with fire because they're on fire with the Holy Spirit.
right.
But and I dreamed I was amongst the ones that put him out to death. So he rejects his message. And usually a prophet is not welcome. It's a classic line in the Old Testament. And Jesus says it too, where a prophet is not welcomed in their own land. So St. Augustine is sort of like a prophet. So he's telling Bob Dylan, listen, you are on a path of sin and you're chasing after the wrong things. And so he dreamed that he was amongst the ones that put him out to death. And then this is so fascinating. He awoke in anger, so alone and terrified. I put my fingers against the glass and bowed my head and cried. Like I think that drives home the sort of song of what this song's about, that Dylan can't let go of something and he's struggling with some sort of sin or something.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
it's just great. Well, this is probably one of the greatest songs on the album.
yeah. I mean, no, people need to wake up if they want to be saved. Um, Not alone can Saint Augustus will save them if they allow. Not alone of so they're not alone of being damned. Redemption, morality, and the search for the truth. A you know a poetic, literal way. Social justice. Um, then I found I think that was it. That's all I got on that one. But anything else you want to add? I think it's all about
I
Saint
guess just
Augustine.
one. The middle, I think, just really quick. Arise, arise, he cried again back in the dream. Arise, arise, he cried so loud, in a voice without restraint. Come out, ye gifted kings and queens, and hear my sad complaint. No
Yeah,
martyr is among ye now, whom you can call your own. So maybe that's this reference to him, maybe like
yeah,
martyr in the rock world, but whom you
yeah,
can call your own. So go on your way accordingly, but know you're not alone. So again, I think it's like, he obviously knew Saint Augustine,
mm,
and he knew. I love how you said also like the carrying of a blanket, which may be a sign of, because I don't know if you know this. Augustine was an ascetic, full of compassion because he
yeah,
understands what people go through.
yeah,
Right, so that's what makes him so amazing. And so maybe tries to um, offer Dylan some sort of salvation through a dream, of course. And again, you talked about how dreams sort of manifest things from the outside world.
yeah,
So psychologically, this song's very deep. It's like screaming for something, and it
yeah,
ends so sad. Like you really have to like, um, instead of choosing the instead of choosing and listening to Saint Augustine, he chooses to be amongst the ones to murder him, or I guess make him a
yeah,
martyr in a way.
yeah,
And he wakes up and just so sad he can't.
yeah.
It's
That's
sad.
that's that's the moral of the song. You nailed it. That's basically it. It's kind of like the life of Saint Augustine, really. Like given the story.
Yeah, you've read it. It's really like, dude, like it's his life is amazing. Now he said yes to God, and he begins um his confessions, which I recommend for anybody out there. Like, read the confessions, even if you're not religious, just read it. It's considered the first biography in like
Oh,
the Western, tradition. Um, but yeah, his story is a story of guilt, of following the wrong things. Very similar to Dylan. Like, he
yeah,
was intelligent. He was considered one of the greatest rhetoricians, which is sort of like today what a lawyer would do. He had it
Right.
all. He had the girls. He married young, had a illegitimate child, had money, had fame, had success, but then always felt the sort of emptiness, and then began his quest to
A
kind of
lot like
find fulfillment.
it's like Dylan's second half. Pretty, you know what I mean? Like he's singing about
Yeah,
himself.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing, and that's why I say when he says, "I dream, I saw Saint Augustine," and then also one more thing that I love what you said. Yeah, you mentioned John Milton's "Methought I saw my late espoused saint,"
Yeah.
which is was one of his songs, which is great
Yeah.
because you said it was a story about a man whose late wife came to him in a dream, and
Hmm.
only to be pulled away in the morning. Which I guess
Yeah.
again, so that wife is Saint Augustine in this song, which
Yeah.
is so bittersweet and sad. This
Yeah. That
song is sad,
it is.
and one, no, and one more thing before I forget, Jimi Hendrix. This was so crazy when I unearthed this. I don't know if you got it in your notes, but he was gonna cover the song, but
Yeah.
Hendrix felt that it was too personal to Dylan, and instead
Yeah.
chose "All Along the Watchtower." So
Yeah.
this could have been the song that he covered instead of
Wow.
"All Along the Watchtower."
Wow. That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
And that poem is heavy. I started to read it, and it was like, okay, I can't handle it. It's so Milton is just
Well,
like,
for you, it must be heavy.
oh my god, it's on another level. I just broke it down in like layman's terms, and then I got into the whole dream thing, and I started to research what dreams are, you know,
Right.
and I just think it's fat. That's a whole other topic. Uh, so anyway, anything we'll leave that song. I mean, I think you it's perfect the way we analyzed it and the way you analyzed it, being the the religious expert. That was great. So so musically,
And
um,
oh yeah, sorry, musically. Go, we'll go ahead there.
if you want to add one more or anything else about the
No, no,
lyrics.
no, I mean, I'm gonna stop because otherwise we'll be one more hour here with Saint Augustine's like my expert. I love Saint Augustine, like,
No,
but
I know
now, but I
you've
guess
always
musically, what's going
mellow, somber song. Once again, great harmonica, nice chord sequence. The drummer's so steady, it's almost like a metronome. Simple,
on? Mhm.
straightforward, and I called it a very Dylan song. It's very Dylan.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? If that makes any
very
sense.
Dylan. That's a good way
You
of
know,
putting it.
three harmonica solos. The guy's really going nuts with harmonica.
Dude, they're all great though. Like if you love harmonica, they're all great.
Oh yeah, simple bass line, and it ends very abruptly, like they just winged it in the studio. Like, end now, Bob.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense the way it ends, and that's the beauty of it.
no.
You
Yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's the beauty with the album. By the way, I don't mean it as an insult when I say some of these songs. I'm gonna say that a lot too. Like you're saying a lot of repetition with the musicality.
yeah,
Like some of these songs sound unfinished,
yeah.
but I think that's the charm, and that was the sound that he was going for.
Oh yeah, no, I think
Well,
so.
he wasn't going for it; it just happened.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we might want to end it here because the next one is Watchtower, and this is good, and we're almost at 2 hours. We're like 1:30. We're gonna be like 1:45 soon. We could end with some chit
Yeah,
chat. But so we basically
yeah,
cut.
I agree.
It's amazing. This is almost like not comparing it to Maiden, but there's history here. There's some history.
Yeah,
John Wesley Harding, you're gonna get a lesson about this lunatic gunfighter. And then you're going to get a religious lesson on Saint Augustine, who really that's a fascinating story. I didn't know all that about him. That's and then all
yeah,
on the
and
one.
dude, I just scratched the surface, Cheech. Like with that one.
Yeah, and as I went out in the morning, it's kind of a mystery. It's a mystery. You don't know what he's talking about there. And that's
That one is definitely the most. I think that's the most mysterious song because again, you kind of mentioned it. The Tom Paine Award that he received, and he made that weird apology for Oswald, and he got booed off the stage. Now, is it that? Is it about paying the iconic revolutionary, one of the fathers of the country? Is it him, the philosopher?
Yeah.
Is it? But then
Did
it's a
he,
weird narrative story about a
did,
girl.
did he really do that? Did he say, did he have sympathy for Oswald? I asked my dad
I'll be
the
honest,
other day.
I don't know. I think he did, man.
Like, so then he didn't like Kennedy, or did he feel Oswald was put in a situation where he had no choice but to kill
He
Kennedy,
tried to offer sympathy.
or he was
Right,
gonna die?
right.
Um, God, the guy who killed Oswald is it's gonna drive me nuts. What's the guy's name?
Who's the guy that murdered Oswald?
Yeah, it's gonna drive me nuts. I was so into the Kennedy conspiracy for a while.
What do you think? Did he do it or was it a setup?
Oh, I think Oswald took the fall, and it was done by many people. You know, in the bush, there's a figure of a person. You know, I think it was set up. It wasn't just Oswald wasn't a lone nut that did it. It was planned by many people. You know, I don't know who put the bullet in the president's head. You know, but maybe it was Oswald, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But they say there's people in the bushes, and it was Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby. I
I was
just
gonna
thought
say
it.
I just found him, Jack Ruby.
Yeah, he shot Oswald. You know, and then he was a hero, but he had to go to jail for. He died of cancer in jail, I believe.
Mm. Right, right.
But
It's
I mean, think about
it's a
John Kennedy.
mysterious song for sure. Go ahead.
When you think John Kennedy in like my parents' generation, the guy was praised. It wasn't like today, but with presidents, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he was like a saint to a lot of to these people. They loved John. Like my grandmother loved him. Like he was, you know, he was going to change America, and he was going to make all these great things. And then
I mean,
why,
he's iconic. Yeah.
why they killed him, well, you know, we'll never know why they wanted him out, you know. And it was just such the '60s were so amazing, man. Like when you think about the '60s, man, like what a decade of history. Kennedy's assassination, Vietnam
It,
War,
it's a lot. It's like a lot in the best way possible.
Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? Like all this crazy shit. The hippies, the Summer of Love, the music. What a decade! What a decade of you know
Yeah. The
the
Vietnam War,
Cuban Missile Crisis. You know, like I mean, all the craziness.
Cuban Missile Crisis,
That
Man
a
on the
lot.
Moon, and then
Oh
movies. Oh my
God!
goodness.
How can
And
we
then the
forget
movie world.
the Man on the Moon, 1969? And that's a whole conspiracy theory.
Yep, yep.
That I seen Buzz Aldridge punch somebody in the face. You know what I mean? Like what's his name? Neil Armstrong. These guys were like, yeah, you know, they're saying that we weren't on the moon. You know, forget about it. But you
Mhm.
know, they replicated it somehow in the studio. Some Hollywood studio replicated Walking on the Moon. Not the great song by the Police, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? It's so off topic. Do you feel that we really
Well,
did
no,
go to
I
the?
think it happened, but no, I don't believe in the conspiracy. I think it happened, but I will say, the director Stanley Kubrick, like when he
Yeah,
filmed his movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, so the conspiracy goes that he was the one. He did such a great job portraying space in 2001: A Space Odyssey that
yeah,
he was paid or asked by the government or somebody to film the moon landing and film
yeah.
something similar. Now, I think I think it happened. I don't think it didn't
Well,
happen. But
interesting.
I can see the conspiracy theories.
It's interesting that after that we didn't do much for space. After 1969, like we didn't. You know, maybe now we are at the Hubble and all that stuff, but like we went to the moon and it was like yay, but like we didn't go to Mars yet, or we didn't. You know, I think Bezos is working on that. You know, but like our technology, I think they didn't put. more money into space programs after that. It was like, yeah, we went to the moon.
Mm.
Why didn't we continue to go further? I mean, you can't go to Mercury; it's impossible. But like, you go to Mars. They put shit on Mars now, and it's insane. And that's a whole nother thing. I think there was life on Mars at one point. They found water, but it
That's a theory.
but it feels like we just didn't excel in the space world after that. You know, we didn't really move.
It would maybe stall.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing stuff now with Mars, which is interesting. Like I've seen some crazy.
Mhm.
There's looks like an old pyramid. You ever see that picture? Like of an old civilization. It's like a rock.
I've seen that.
I I kind of
Yeah,
believe
I've seen that.
there might have been life on Mars at one point, and then it got wiped out, and it is what it is now. It's just an abandoned, like,
Oh.
desert, huge planet with nothingness to it. But somehow they think we're gonna wind up there, right? Isn't that the theory? Like Bezos or these rich
Well,
people
we'll just
want to,
go
like,
back a little bit. I think with the space race in the 1960s, the technology wasn't there, and I think the race was to reach the moon first before the Russians do,
yeah,
and then they kept making like Apollo 13. You know, the famous Apollo 13
yeah,
fiasco. Like they kept doing Apollo missions, but the Mars thing. What I think funding has always been a problem. With there's
yeah,
some presidencies where they invest in the space program and some that
yeah.
don't. And I think the next step would be to reach Mars. And I think Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos probably is pouring money. And I think President Trump is going to be investing once again in NASA, which
Oh, he
I
is
think
putting
that's the
money.
next. He when he was president, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then
I mean, I think,
Elon Musk is definitely interested.
yeah, and I know Bezos went up. He did something. He didn't go to Mars, but he shot up somewhere with what's his name, with Captain Kirk. Um,
Hmm.
did I freeze? I think I'm at my freeze up mode right now. We're at almost 2 hours. But
It's
then
starting. It's starting. The lagging. It's starting.
didn't Bezos go up? He went up somewhere with
Yeah, he will. William Shatner. Yeah, but he just went to the moon though, or something. Or I don't know what he did, but
yeah. But yeah, if he's gonna put stuff into Mars, I mean, eventually that's where we're gonna wind up because the sun's gonna I mean, the Earth is going to eventually disintegrate at some point. I think the sun has some life in it, but how are you going to live on Mars though? How are you going to do it? The different you breathe up there. I don't know. There's oxygen. I don't know. But they say it's like it's our
mm,
sister
well,
planet.
it's
It's close to us. But I was always into astronomy as a kid. Like you had what is it? Mercury, Venus,
mm,
Earth, and Mars are solid, and then Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune are gaseous at the core, so you can't live. There's no life. There would be no life there. It's just And then they're saying Pluto's not even a
mhm.
planet, another moon from Uranus, I think. They come up with all
No, yeah.
and there's planets past that we don't see. That you know. Oh, they see
Mhm,
them now with is it the Hubble telescope? I knew I worked with a kid at the
mhm.
temple who was really into this, and he turned me on to all these crazy things that there is in other galaxies. There's Earths and there's life on it. That was like a thing that they discovered that they think is going on. But I think if you get into aliens, I think they would be here by now. I think they would come down at this point,
Mm.
maybe in our lifetime, or maybe in my grandkids' lifetime. They'll make an appearance. Them and Jesus and Buddha, they'll all come back. Say what's going on.
Who knows? The aliens, man. Who
You
knows? Who
know,
knows? Will we get to Mars one day? Maybe.
the aliens need to come down now, if anything. But anyway, so we'll stop at the Saint Augustine song, and then we'll start up with Watchtower. I
Mm.
think Where'd my paper go? Let's see. Oh, we didn't even scratch the surface. We got All Along the Watchtower, The Ballad of Frankie Lee, and Judas Priest. I get a kick out of that. Judas Priest.
Yeah, I was gonna say because of Judas Priest, the band.
Yeah. And Drifter's Escape. So this
It's
might be
pretty good.
a 3-part episode.
Well, what I think is that after Along the Watchtower, I think we should just go through each one, like not fast, but like um because at that point, I think Along the Watchtower is like the famous song. I think
Yeah,
that's the one that we definitely need to focus time on, just because of what it is. But yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it. Hopefully, one more part, and then we'll go from there.
yeah, definitely. So a great episode. And we'll finish up. This is like part 1 before I start lagging away. And I did pretty
Part
good
one.
for
John
um,
Wesley Harding.
yeah. Look up the old Western cowboys. There I go. I'm lagging. Uh,
Get starting. I'm
yep.
gonna
All right.
experiment with something, but well, I just want to conclude with just yeah, I agree. Look up the old Outlaws. I think there's so much great stories out there. Um, Definitely intense, and
It's Saint Augustine. You gave the brief history of him. Study him. So just in 3 songs, you got it's the history
I know
lesson, and it's not a rough
we went to the Oswald mystery too, which is crazy.
Yeah, Dylan is like he really is like Rush. He's like Rush. You could dig deep, not in the philosophy, but in the
Yeah,
history, absurdity, and all the metaphors, poetry. You got it all. He's a lot like Rush. He definitely is like Rush. So, but on that note, before I freeze up, great job, Manny. The Cheech and Manny Show, People's Podcast. Thank you for listening.
People's
and
Podcast.
keep sending the comments, and go out and do your homework and listen to Bob Dylan's first, the electric albums, and John Wesley Harding acoustic, you know, trio.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll see you tomorrow, because tomorrow we're gonna be recording Physical Graffiti with the great Joe Silkman, and that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Mr. Joe Silkman, and that's going to be a gargantuan. I don't know if you can handle it. I'm going to have to do that in 2 parts, but um, and again, I just want to conclude by saying John Wesley Harding was a friend to the poor. So
Got 42 men and probably 40 more men. He's
okay, Cheech. Now, wait, before you log off, I'm going to stop recording because I want to test something.
okay.
I'm going to stop. Ready? And we're back. We are going to continue spinning John Wesley Harding. We left off. So just so I pick up where we last left off. Cheech broke down John Wesley Harding.
Yep.
As I went out one morning and I dreamed I saw Saint Augustine, which we kind of went on a religion tangent a little bit, and I had to calm down. I'm a huge Saint Augustine fan and historian, and I love his philosophy and his theology. And now we're probably going to spend more than a few minutes on the next track, All Along the Watchtower.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And just want to make a disclaimer for anybody out there listening to their first listen is going to be John Wesley Harding, or I've never listened to it. The album must be heard with the music. We're breaking it down lyrically, but the lyrics and the music. This is one of the rare occasions, or maybe it's always a Dylan-esque thing where you gotta hear both,
Yeah.
because we, for example, broke down the song. He did an awesome job. As I went out one morning, and we said lyrically it's strange. We don't know what to make of it. But when you hear Dylan's voice and the music, actually it's a very haunting song. It kind of reminds me of one of those old cowboy ballads or something.
Yeah.
He gets
into that kind of. He's going to get into that even more on Nashville Skyline.
Which is one of our future episodes. And so just a little disclaimer for all our young listeners, new rock fans. definitely, I'm convinced that John Wesley Harding is an essential listen, and listen to the album. Like you can hear our like commentary and analyzation, but it helps that you listen to the music Dylan puts it to.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah.
fantastic. And then here's my co-host Cheech Carrero, People's Basis. And by the way, this is the People's Podcast, the only podcast you should listen to on rock. Cheech, do
Exactly.
you agree?
I agree. I mean, the only other podcast that I like, and it's my second favorite Manny, is the Manny Grossman, the Son of Sam guy. You know, he's my.
Well, we might give him a run for his money when we start our true crime episode soon.
He's a huge Rush fan, and I sent you one of his videos. And
That's right.
you got to watch the first 2 minutes. It's really funny. He talks about Rush and Iron Maiden.
That's right.
They were linking it up to like the Son of Sam killings and all that crazy shit, you know. But yeah. So on a sad note for me, I just want to dedicate this episode to my uncle who passed away last year. It's 1 year, and this is for you, Unc. He would be really proud of me, you know, doing my passion with my partner Manny, and he's a great man. He took me to many concerts and turned me on to a lot of great music and stuff. So.
Yeah, Chicho. Yeah, sorry for your loss, man. Rest in peace. May God always be with him. And actually, on that note, also, I know of a few very young people that passed away. So also give a shout out to them. So it's always sad, but rest in peace and
Thank you. On a happy note, it's my niece Gwen's birthday. She turns 20. So
happy birthday. Did she watch the show?
she's a fan. Yeah, she's a fan. It's Rob's daughter.
Shout out.
And she knows her music. She's a really talented, beautiful kid. Turned out to be amazing.
Rob did a good job.
She's actually like in Albany, and she's working under a senator. She wants to get into politics. Really, she's a pretty amazing kid.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So, anyway, you want to jump into John Wesley Harding? So we left off on Watchtower.
So no, we're gonna start Watchtower. Right. We left off on "I Dreamed of Saint Augustine," which I think you and I both agree is probably one of the best songs. Just
yeah.
I think it's a shame. I told you, Cheech, like in Mr. Joe Silkman, our third unofficial co-host. He mentioned that we have inspired his like Bob Dylan, listens once again. Like he never thought he'd be listening to Bob Dylan as much as,
that means so much when we could do that.
Oh, that's a high compliment. And he said that he didn't even listen to John Wesley Harding. Now he wants to listen to it because of our talks. So I just find it amazing. And also myself, because I'll be honest with you, I've always skipped this album. And and Nashville Skyline too. So, and I'm excited to talk about Nashville Skyline in the future episode.
Yeah, we won't go too crazy with that, but that to me, we'll get into it. It's an important album for my humble opinion is he's one of the forefathers of country rock.
Right.
On that. Right. So Watchtower. This could get long because it's.
I think because we got to talk about Jimi Hendrix too on this one.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I brought that up in the music, but for everybody who knows, anyone who's a classic rock fan knows Jimi Hendrix made this song.
Yep.
What it is, the way he recorded it, the effects, just his solo, phenomenal. He reinvented a genius song already.
I would say, Cheech, like how you said, like a Rolling Stone is the '60s. I would also argue his version, but by the way, it's not a coincidence. It's a Bob Dylan song. All on the Watchtower is the '60s too.
Oh yeah, the late '60s. The psychedelia.
The psychedelia. Yep.
Yeah, that's where it starts with Jimmy. Leading into Janis and the Doors and all that. Oh, stuff. All right, so, God, where do we start with this one? Because I'm just gonna throw some stuff at you, and then you tell me how you feel about this. Talking about
go. You'll talk, and then for our listeners, strap in because this is gonna be this is considered one of the greatest songs.
Because of like it's Lent and everything, and this first quote that I came up with, this is what I got. There are many here among us who feel that life is a joke. This is a reference to the crucifixion. The chief priest describes the soldiers standing around the cross mocking at Jesus.
Right. And I'll pause right there. You know what's funny? How you said that. So the song, I don't know if you noticed this. And I think Dylan, obviously, since he's a songwriter, he brings it out more.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll be honest with you, I was thinking of that, but I didn't know how to prove it because it would just be like, where did you find that?
I Dylanologist, some Dylanologist. Now it might not, it could be wrong, but
Right, right,
it's a Dylanologist theory.
right.
You know, there's a site where you could go and look up these people that consider themselves Dylan. I'm like, we're Rushologists, obviously. There's Dylanologists out there, but you know, we're slowly becoming like getting our associate's degree. I'm getting my associate's degree in Dylanology right now. You know, I'm a PhD already in the Rushology.
Yeah, we're like professors emeriti of Rush.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's where I got that. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think we talked about it. The watchtower is. I always thought it's either a metaphor or symbolic of God Almighty, and also the title of the Jehovah Witness magazine,
I,
The Watchtower. So that's where they got it from. So but I'm not talking about Jehovah Witness, but
yeah,
um,
we went there.
no. But I love what you said. There must be some way out of here. Said the Joker to the thief, and I'll be honest. I always thought that was the two people crucified next to Jesus. Either that or two people. That's what I
Exactly.
thought, and I
Right.
can't prove it. I wouldn't know how to do it, but um, and look, there's too much confusion. I can't get no relief, and then there could be some crowd in there. So we're present at the crucifixion. Businessmen, they drink my wine. Plowmen dig my earth. None of them along the line know what any of it is worth, right? So it sort of sets the scene of like a really yeah, the crucifixion. I wouldn't be shocked. Either that, and I think hopefully I think that's you'll be talking about it. There's some sort of apocalyptic thing going on.
Yeah, yeah. That you know that makes sense. And then I think the mocking towards Jesus is that Luke 23:35-37.
That's one of them. That's one
Yeah.
of them. Yep,
Uh,
yep,
I also got the fallen world of Babylon, to which the Joker and the thief are a part of.
yep. That's the and that's the I think we talked about it where I think like off camera in that if another way to interpret it is it's a moment in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So and I guess I'll let you keep going and then we'll go from we'll keep adding.
Um. Let me see.
I was going to the book of Isaiah.
Yep. Then here's one: those who take life as a joke. The Corinthians, 15:32. They are without hope. Uh, so let us not talk falsely, as the hour is getting late.
Okay.
Falsely reminds us of the ninth commandment: never to give false testimony against anyone or twist
Mm-hmm.
the words or gossip.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I got.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Um, Now the non-religious stuff. All along the watchtower. A conversation between a joker and a thief.
Yep.
Some Dylanologists say it is about, okay, the book of Isaiah, chapter 21,
Yep.
verse 59. He wrote this during a thunderstorm, influenced by Robert Johnson. You know, Me and the
Mm-hmm.
Devil Blues. Also influenced by Woody Guthrie. The Joker and the thief ride towards a watchtower. They're overwhelmed by circumstances. Um, and some say that's from the book of Revelations. I don't know. The thief urges the Joker not to talk falsely. Bob Dylan is the Joker, and Albert Grossman is the thief, his manager at the time.
Mm.
That's another theory that that I got. So that's pretty much all on the lyrics. How do you feel about that? You want to add anything?
I mean, that's pretty good. And just going back to the Isaiah, yeah, it resembles. You guys know the prophet Isaiah. Anybody out there? Some writers have said that it resembles the chapter 21, verses 5 through 9. And I'll just read it here so you can kind of see.
Yeah.
Isaiah writes, and this is in the Old Testament: "Prepare the table, watch in the watchtower, eat, drink, arise, ye princess, and princess, and prepare the shield. For thus hath the Lord said unto me, Go set a watchman, let him declare what he seeth. And he saw a chariot with a couple of horsemen, and a chariot of donkeys, right, and a chariot of camels. And he hearkened diligently with much heed. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men, and a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all of the graven images of her gods he hath broken onto the ground."
Right.
So again, this song has, I think it definitely resembles that as well, where it's apocalyptic, and I think the music on the album John Wesley Harding, it's stark, it's how else would I don't know how else you would describe it, but it's a biblical song, but you can take it in so many ways, and it ends with, and again, like Isaiah writes here, that the couple of horsemen are coming, and the song ends with two riders were approaching, and the wind began to howl. And
Wow.
And just going back, that could also be a reference to like the crucifixion as well, because the moment Jesus died, storm, winds began to howl, and like the earth started shaking.
That's amazing that he took it right from the book of Isaiah.
It's right there. So this song is Bible, but in hidden form, and that's why he says "all on the watchtower." Now, I had another theory of this song, and I don't know if other Dylanologists would agree. So you know that by the time he releases this album, psychedelia begins, right?
Yeah.
It's all flower power, hippie, peace, love, free love, one world, good stuff.
Yeah.
Centered on love. And the Beatles, all you need is love is representative of that, as well as the San Francisco scene.
Hate Ashbury.
Hate Ashbury, exactly. And then the pinnacle, Woodstock, the Woodstock concert, 3 days of peace and love. So Dylan releases his album, and I feel as though Dylan's always ahead of the, times.
Always.
I think he's referring to sort of the disillusionment that's going to happen in just a short span of time. Because in 1969, all that comes crashing down, and it sort of led up to it. And we've talked about Hendrix. He dies. Morrison dies. Joplin dies. The drug scene becomes, now a lot of people's brains start frying because they were taking this drug, LSD. Famously, Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd, for example, was lost, among others.
Timothy Leary,
Yep.
Early, it goes back earlier as an experiment. You would probably know this. It was given to housewives.
No. Timothy Leary. Yeah, Leary said, "Tune in, tune out."
Yeah,
that was his famous phrase. But they thought that the drug was sort of, it's like a new way of to see the world. They hadn't realized the effects it has on the brain. And unfortunately, and then the Rolling Stones try to replicate the concert at Woodstock in California, Altamont. And that ended in complete failure and violence. And then the 70s just began a period of darkness. Things were never the same.
No. And
so Dylan, I think one of the ways you can see...
Vietnam got worse too.
Oh, obviously the height of Vietnam. Vietnam started idealistically, but then unfortunately the war became grueling, and you can see it in Apocalypse Now, the movie. You can kind of see how horrible the war was, and Platoon. But I think that he plugs himself into this song, and for example, Dylan could be the Joker. He could be talking to the thief who's his manager, right? Like you said.
Yeah. Well,
and good.
There's a lot of that going on in this album. I don't know if Albert Grossman stopped managing him after this.
Right.
He was just he was being pushed. he was being pushed to churn out too much material, and he didn't want to do it. He was getting burnt because Nashville Skyline. He wants to become a family man. That's his main goal. That's why he didn't tour all those years, and that's where he was headed, away from all that. And
no, it's kind of funny you say that because he even changed his style. I mean, he looks like a dad on Nashville Skyline.
yeah,
Like he embraced sort of like a cowboy, like not the cowboy, but the country style, away
smile,
from the bohemian rock style.
and you never seen him smile before. Smile on the album,
And he's smiling on this album cover, right?
yeah, and he's singing. I mean, he's actually, that's another reason why it's so important to do that album, because he's singing, and that's something he never did.
He starts here, like you can hear it.
Yeah,
And I heard that he stopped smoking. Now I don't know if it was on this album, but he stopped smoking. Like, he was smoking like, I don't know. I could be wrong. Don't no one fact check me. I'm just speaking out of my brain. He was smoking like 20 cigarettes a day or something.
yeah. He was on a National Skyline. He gave up smoking, and he
There
said
we go.
that's what did it.
He has a beautiful, rich voice.
Yeah, it's so unique.
Baritone. I don't know how I could describe it. It's funny, when I first heard that album, I remember years ago I heard Lay Lady Lay, because it's a big hit. Everyone knows that song.
Yeah, that was huge.
I love the song. Like I will do Nashville Skyline just for that song because I love it. But then I discovered more Dylan, and then I remember I heard Maggie's Farm, and he's singing that voice, and I'm like, wait, that's Dylan? That's fake. That's auto-tune. And the auto-tune didn't exist, but I'm just like, wait, what?
How many people change their voice like that? And nobody. You stay one. I mean, obviously, as Geddy aged and Bruce Dickinson, they weren't singing like they were in their 20s. They had to use different techniques to, I mean, they still sound great, but they're not singing like they were when they were younger. But so that's just a different kind of technique. But Dylan just kind of changed his style.
Yeah, he's such a chameleon. Like and I'll be honest with you, I think, and I'm so excited John Wesley Harding is fantastic. I feel like this is like, the more I think about it, how you had those folk albums before Bring It All Back Home?
Yeah.
This is probably folk perfected. I think this is, it's great because this album, and hopefully one day we can, in future episodes, because how much I'm a Springsteen fan, we can do Springsteen.
Oh, yeah, we got to do Bruce. We got to do. Because, like, I was talking to somebody at the temple. What did they say to me? What are you gonna do on your 100th episode? I said, I don't know.
Yeah, what should we do? That's so exciting. Because I think at this point we're like 30, and I'll be honest, by the year's over, we'll probably be at 60.
Yeah, we're getting there, So I said, I don't know. I said, I'm worried about the next one. I take it episode by episode.
I know, but we got to do a Springsteen episode because I will turn you on to Springsteen, because Springsteen is Dylan. Like, I would argue, like, Dylan's like spiritual successor. And in the 80s, he released an album, Nebraska. Now, Cheech, you love Wesley Harding. You'll love Nebraska because both of these albums, I could see that Springsteen was inspired by John Wesley Harding, because both share the same vibe, music, lyrics, even voice.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know this. Springsteen has that. He's kind of like Dylan, where he's so versatile. He can change his voice. He has that gruff, like, But
almost like where Eddie Vedder got it from. And these grunge guys.
100%. I would make the argument. It's funny how you said that. I would make the argument that Eddie Vedder is like Springsteen. Like, Pearl Jam is classic rock. I don't think they were never grunge, like people would say.
Things, it's like guttural,
like that. Yeah. Yep. Like it sounds like, most people might, most people are who, I'm not trying to be mean, but, don't know anything will be like, oh, I can't listen to him. And you're not listening. But on Nebraska, he does a turn like John Wesley Harding, and even his voice changes. Like, I always see, like, I don't know if anyone wants to comment on this. If you think John Wesley Harding and Nebraska are like two albums of the same sort of cloth, stripped down, acoustic.
I've heard the album, in the 80s when it came out.
You should listen to it. You'll love it.
What was the big hit on there? It was
the big hit was I love this song, Atlantic City, which was, you should watch the band's cover of it.
Oh wow.
It's so beautiful. I love Levon Helm.
Yeah.
Love his voice, and because he, just the way he sings it, and the original is fantastic too.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, Levon Helms and he's a great drummer too.
Dude, and you speak. Is it easy to sing and play the drums?
Very few people can do it well. Um, the greatest drummer to do it is the drummer in a Canadian rock band called Triumph.
Mm,
A guy named Gil Moore, because he sang like soulful
right.
and played drums. He was not on the level of per guy, but the guy can, he modeled himself a little bit like Neil. He did a lot of fills and a lot of interesting things. And the drummer in the Eagles, what's
Eagles.
his, what's his name? I forget. The drummer.
The famous Don Henley and
Yeah.
Phil Collins.
Oh, how could we forget Phil Collins?
Which I'm a huge Genesis fan too.
So to play drums and sing is and Levon Helms is grooving. He's not playing a straight beat.
No, that's what's so. And if you watch, by the way, speaking of Dylan, if you watch The Last Waltz, I mean,
Yeah.
you're the expert in music. The way he's playing, and I'm hearing he sings like this, right? He's sort of like an angle, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, what talent, because he's grooving.
It's
So
like
you have to keep
a swampy feel.
and that, and you being the musician, is that easy? I mean, I think just playing drums would.
Oh no! I mean, you could play like a Phil Rudd AC/DC beat, boom, ba, and sing to that. But I don't know how these guys do it. I don't know how Geddy Lee sings and plays bass. To be honest,
It's remarkable.
or Sting, somebody like Sting. You know how?
Oh, you're right. Actually, as a side note, what do you think of Sting and his bass playing?
I think he's fucking. I'm sorry, amazing. You know,
I was gonna say we gotta talk about the Police on a future episode. Speaking of post punk,
he's not like real busy, but like he leaves you with like walking on the moon. Don't.
yeah.
He's got these like trademark lines that are just
Yeah.
It's thing. That's all you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna get too sidetracked. The music are we good on?
Yeah, we're good. Now it's musically, I think it's gonna be.
Thank you. That was amazing. You pretty much the Book of Isaiah is Watchtower. That's it.
I am convinced that this song is Bible Isaiah hidden.
Oh, 100%.
And it's apocalyptic, and I think he's foretelling, or he's foreshadowing.
Sorry. If I keep moving, a rough day at the temple, my knees are gonna. I feel like Joe Theismann today.
The temple. And by the way, for our viewers out there, no, the temple is not a religious cult.
And a cult, not a Freemason cult.
No, it's not Freemasons.
It's an interesting place. To be kind.
Listen to Rush 2112 and you'll understand.
Yeah. So all along the Watchtower, great harmonica intro, great melody, great lyrics because you nailed it. Great guitar strumming, steady beat. Let me see. Great drum fills, great chorus, and the harmonica really stands out a lot in it, which I like. And then of course Jimi Hendrix immortalized it and made it, what it is.
Yeah. And thank you. Great job on that. And we're gonna, for our viewers out there, you're gonna notice that we're gonna be kind of repetitive on the music, because the music follows this sort of, for the most part, very simple. It's not.
I hear bells in the back.
Oh man, that's a sign. Uh-oh. And the wind began to howl.
But I gotta say, I gotta put Dylan up there with Neil Peart, because what you just broke down out of the Bible and he put into song, I might say that's one of the greatest lyrics concepts ever. You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
I think does he get enough credit? Do people really realize what this guy's doing?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. It started with me because as most people know, like my day job is teaching. But not only that, but even before that, and I've always been interested in viewing like religious themes in music,
Yeah.
I was amazed that no one talks about how religious Dylan is. And it's
Yeah.
crazy because this song, I'm convinced it's Isaiah. He's pretty much hiding Isaiah's apocalyptic verses of the fall of Babylon, which, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know out there, Babylon was like the huge city of the time. Babylon ended up destroying Jerusalem. Babylon
Yeah.
ends up destroying the Ark of the Covenant, allegedly, because the Ark
Yeah.
of the Covenant, I don't believe that, but it disappeared at the same time that Babylon destroys Jerusalem and pretty much and it sort of not enslaves the Israelites, but sort of displaces them a little bit. And
Yeah.
so this verse that Isaiah speaks of, and again, just it's stunning, and that's what's brilliant about Dylan. You could take it in so many ways of what kind of apocalypse or what kind of warning he's giving. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy. He doesn't get enough credit.
No. It's total genius. You know.
Oh, and then with the Hendrix version, just one more thing before we move on, because we definitely in future we're going to be covering Hendrix as well.
Yeah.
Because his three albums that he released when he was alive are must listens. And Electric Ladyland, dude, one of the greatest double albums as well. Like we did Blonde on Blonde, we did Physical Graffiti, and hopefully one day we'll do Electric Ladyland. And the reason why I say Electric Ladyland for all our viewers out there is that's the one that has his cover of All Along the Watchtower and his version. And again, it's so weird because first of all, that's Hendrix's last album, right? Before he'll end up ODing at 27.
Yeah.
It's the second to last song, and his version brings out the apocalypse even more. Like, like the Bob Dylan's fantastic. It's stark, it's haunting, it's spooky. It has like you're right. I love how you say it has that Delta blues feel.
Yeah,
with Robert Johnson in a way. I can feel it. Like there's something hot. But Hendrix comes in, and with his electric guitar being the second voice, just you hear. Like I always argue, like the electric guitar solos are the Horsemen.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You know, and the electric guitar for those viewers out there, because sadly the solo is no more in like contemporary music, and it needs to make a comeback. It's like the second voice. So you have the lead voice and then the electric solo, and Hendrix he sang and played electric, and his version was so great that Dylan sort of tried to copy his version.
Yeah.
And again, it
makes it so unique. Yeah,
I think so. And the effects and I think is there wah-wah pedals in that song? That's it. Okay, that's what it's called.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And his singing is so even though at the beginning, you know how it starts dun 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 dun, like, dude, he made the song, and it's crazy. If you have not heard Along the Watchtower, I will say start with Bob Dylan first.
Yeah.
If you hear Hendrix, you'll have a hard time with the Dylan version.
That was me. You know, like being
me too.
Rock and metal and all that, and listening to Hendrix, and then going to the Bob Dylan, I was like, "Ooh, this is boring."
Yeah.
Same, knocking on Heaven's Door, I didn't mind because I knew knocking on.
Oh, but Guns N' Roses version is so much better.
But I knew knocking on Heaven's Door first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I played bands, and then Guns N' Roses comes out, and just like, whoa, no.
Oh. Dude, you know, I love Axl. Speaking of, and one day we're gonna do an episode on Guns N' Roses, another legendary album, and band. I love his version because the way Axl Rose is such a brilliant singer, where he goes like knock knock knocking on heaven's door, like nah, and then he goes like in that high, like amazing, and then Slash has one of the best guitar solos, like the song like
a bass break where it's like boom boom,
yeah,
boom boom. It's genius.
And the drums, like it's like, man, you could hear heaven. It's amazing.
He did a great job with that.
Yeah.
So the next one, great job, Manny, with that breaking.
Oh,
that down.
geez, likewise, man. So you started, you got all the interpretations, and I picked I'm convinced Isaiah. So.
Oh, it's totally, and he is to me, that's the most genius thing in a song ever.
Yeah.
I, I mean,
Who would
I'm
have thought?
Neil, even more than Neil. You
Yeah.
know, I'm no who does that? Like who could take a Bible passage and then you picked it out. You know,
No,
this is epic, right? This is epic moment right now.
and
You know what I mean?
I no when you said that, and again, I was kind of wrestling with it for days. Actually, I was like, "This is Isaiah. There's no way." And I was thinking actually of the crucifixion too, and the fact that I wonder if Hendrix knew that Dylan was talking about Isaiah, like because Hendrix is so brilliant. He pretty much unlocked it musically, but I wonder if he knew. I don't think he did though.
I can't imagine Hendrix being a religious guy. I don't know. I mean, well, maybe he was. He was such a nice. He just seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
I knew a guy who knew him, who met him like early on in his career when he was a bass player. I met
Right.
this old sax player. I think he played bass on the song called "The Peppermint Twist" or something. And he knew him as a kid. He was like 16 years old, and he's like, "Oh, he
Right.
was like the sweetest guy in the world and stuff." And I don't think fame made him like an ego or anything. Hendrix was just
No.
chill, just,
Very chill, very cool guy. It's funny because on stage he's so flashy and has that rock star um, vibe and style, but in interviews he's always gentle. He's kind of like Jimmy Page too.
yeah. But he was always like happy on stage. He always would
Yeah,
laugh or
yeah.
always and just. I love watching him perform. I think one of the he is. I think Hendrix is the greatest rock guitar player, in my opinion. You know,
He's top.
he invented it. You know, you could ask Steve Vai, and I bet you Steve Vai will say that. You know, Jimmy. You know. Okay, so this one's weird.
I know this one's so strange, and it has wait. Did Judas Priest take their name from this song?
No, I looked
Okay.
at. Now I've been trying to figure out if Judas Priest was a historical person.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious because
Was
we know Judas, right?
yeah,
One of the 12 that betrayed
Judas,
Jesus.
Judas Priest got their name from that concept, Judas, and then put a priest next to it.
Right, because that's Judas's priest.
Right, you know,
Right.
so that was like Jesus and Judas Priest.
I was gonna say because Judas's priest would be Jesus because he's a high
Right,
priest.
yeah, but he came up with Judas Priest.
Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
I don't know. It's just crazy, you know. Okay, the Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, not the Rob Halford Judas Priest we know.
Right.
Okay, so this is what I got. Two friends, Frankie and Judas Priest, are like hanging out, and Frankie asks him for a loan. Now this is again a biblical thing, I
Yeah.
think. So he
Yeah.
gives him money, you know, freely, whatever you want, he gives it to him. Now Frankie, keep it rated G, spends it on wine, woman, and song. Let's put it that way, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for 16 days. Then he comes back and he dies of thirst in the arms of Judas Priest. Now, again, some Dylanologists say this is Bob Dylan dying of thirst and he's in the arms of Albert Grossman. You know, like he's dying. He needs to get out. He wants to get out of the contract. You know, he's like done with like, I don't want to be anybody's like, I don't want to work. I kind of like, you know, Prince did it. You know, Prince got out of his contract because you were getting overworked, overpressured. You got to have this album. You got to do that. And Dylan was like, I did enough already. He got married. He wanted to be a family man. You know, so that's one
Right.
theory. So some say that the priest was being like evil. Judas Priest was being evil, and he did it on purpose because he knew that Frankie would spend the money, you know, on the wrong things. It's like if you know a guy's a drug addict and he's like, "Hey Manny, can I borrow $10?" and you give him the money,
Right.
you know what he's going to do with it. So then a stranger tells Frankie Lee Judas Priest is down the road. And, you know, I think Priest did it on purpose. That's another theory, you know, just to
Right.
see
Right.
or an experiment, see what he would do. And he ends up dying of thirst because he spent all his money on, you know, those bad things. How do you feel about that?
That's pretty good, Cheech. There's another case where the song is so strange. It's kind of like surreal or like bizarre.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to make of it. There's definitely some weird biblical things going on,
Oh yeah.
and obviously Judas Priest, which is interesting, right? We know Judas Priest from the band, but
Yeah.
the fact that he kind of puts it here.
Yeah, he invented that name before Judas Priest because they didn't come out 2 years later. So who knows? You know, who knows if they maybe weren't Dylan fans, but they seen it on the
Right,
back. Oh, that's a cool name.
right, right.
And then searching for years that I heard he was a real person, Judas Priest, in the Middle Ages.
Oh,
But I could be wrong. I don't know. I never found anything on him, but it's that's my take on it. But it does sound biblical. Wait. I think I have more. Or that's another song. No, I'm sorry. It's another song. I got all excited over another Bible, a crazy
right.
Bible reference in another song, but so
And you know what's funny, Cheech, with this song? Talk about I'm seeing more that John Wesley Harding. You know how at this time psychedelia and excess is starting,
yeah.
like Sergeant Pepper,
Mm-hmm.
the Israeli Gears,
Yeah.
like Disraeli Gears, even like Frank Zappa and the
Yeah.
Mother's Invention are coming out. So it's funny. This song I always see also as I don't know, like a parody of some kind too. I can't put my finger on it, but the Bible is there, and just the final stanza. Well, the moral of the story. And by the way, and you'll be talking about the music. I love the way Bob Dylan sings this song.
Yeah.
It's like a song where you would pick up a guitar and there'll be kids around. And he'll just, okay, kids, listen up. Well, the
Yeah.
moral of the story, the moral of the song, is simply that one should never be where one does not belong. Which, by the way, don't remember how we talked about Led Zeppelin in the light. You want to be in the light, not in darkness,
Exactly.
right? So when you see your neighbor carrying something, and by the way, everybody think of the band's The Weight song, help him with his load. Once again, this idea comes up again,
Right.
and don't go mistaking paradise for that home across the road. What do you think about that?
That home across the road is a brothel.
Oh, okay. All right, there we go then. So this song is sort of telling you like stay with Jesus and not with this character of Judas Priest, right? Because he's the one that convinces him.
Yeah. Well, he gives him the money, so that brothel is going to down for 14 days, and it's an addiction, and you're going to spend all your money. And
No, and I wonder if Judas betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, like him giving the money, if that's like a reference to that.
could be because he's giving him the money.
That's what I'm saying. To go to do something bad. And one of the best, I don't know, there's something funny about this song too. Like again, for our
Well, that's
listeners
a
out there, good.
great point about Judas. They.
Well, I'm just thinking because I will say, and this is one of my favorite songs. I have to say, in Augustine, the Augustine one, but one of the great lines, Cheech here, and I don't know how you would think of this. It's kind of funny the way I love how Dylan does some of these songs where, like, remember in Highway 61 Revisited, God said to Abraham, "Kill me a son." Abe said, "What?" Right? He always does this thing where there's a dialogue in the song, and in this song, he says, "Eternity," said Frankie Lee with a voice as cold as ice. "That's right," said Judas Priest. "Eternity, though you might call it paradise. I don't call it anything," said Frankie Lee with a smile. "All right," said Judas Priest. "I'll see you after a while." Like, and it's funny how you said that he brings him to the brothel, right, or whatever bad place across, the road.
Like he knew it was going to happen.
Right, and it makes him confused about eternity and paradise, and pretty much, and it's funny that the title of the song is "The Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest."
Like
So
it's
ballads tend to be sad, right? Like, or
yeah.
Great song.
Yeah, great analogy, And I think, that house is the brothel, so stay away from the brothels, man.
Stay away from the brothels, everybody. Or the bad side of the road.
Yeah. Oh, did I do the music? No.
Music.
Yeah. Okay. Great guitar intro. Traditional folk chords. Nice simple bass line. Great lyrics as we discussed. Straight ahead song. It's um it's pretty much more of a story with music in the background, like what you said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And great, great harmonica. So it's a
Yeah.
story, almost like not spoken word, but it's a great story with music
Yeah.
playing. And that's what I love about Dylan. There's a story. I mean, sometimes the story makes no sense. There's absurdity, which we got
Right.
to dig. But Zeppelin too. Zeppelin does the same thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so next one, Drifters. Drifters Escape. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so this was recorded in 4 takes. He wrote it on a train. This man. This album is so good. I gotta just say,
Hmm.
every song is interesting. At least when I
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I came with the character is oppressed by society but not defeated, put on trial but does not know the charges against him. The judge is sympathetic and the jury finds him guilty. But by divine intervention,
Right.
the courthouse gets struck by lightning and the guy's able to escape. He's freed by God, or is he freed by a false prophet, the devil? You know what I mean? Uh, Not knowing why he is on jury for what is his charge. Is this a metaphor for why people hated Dylan for moving away from folk rock to rock?
Right.
Why question, uh, and then the lightning hitting the courthouse could be a metaphor for his motorcycle accident.
Right. I think this is the most one of the again. So this is actually one of my. It's funny because this song everyone knows all along the Watchtower on this,
Yeah,
but then you have these songs like this, which and musically they're great too, which you'll be talking about. But yeah, it's short but strong. Like there's so much. I think there's like an allegory for something.
yeah.
And I love what you said that it could be him when he was put on trial, like the rock world. You know,
But
they kept calling him a. Oh, and by the way, just one more thing about Judas Priest. They called Dylan Judas.
yeah, so maybe that could be it too for the last song.
You know, but in the Drifters Escape, he was always a drifter. Even on his motorbike. So that's credible.
One Dylanologist said he had a new style. He could put a 5-act story in just 3 verses. He wrote
Yeah,
this whole album. Like, that's one of the things that are very important that I should point out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I love the final verse or stanza where he says, "Oh, stop that cursed jury," cried the attendant and the nurse. "The trial was bad enough, but this is 10 times worse. So when all hope is lost." It's sort of similar. Cheech, have you seen To Kill a Mockingbird? Like read the book or the movie
oh yeah,
with Gregory Peck? Remember how that ends kind of hopeless? Like there's no divine intervention.
no, I know.
So this case, though, just then a bolt of lightning struck the courthouse out of shape, and while everybody knelt to pray, once again, religious themes are in this. They're all over this album. The drifter did escape.
Yeah, and it was
So was that?
divine intervention. So he gets to go away, and
And he escapes because the people were praying. They were distracted.
and Dylan escapes, and he gets to play rock music, and then he goes back
Yeah.
to music. So there's always a metaphor in there in my mind, for folk,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
folk music, rock.
You know what's funny? Like I would wonder, this album. I'm everybody out there. Go listen to John Wesley Harding. It's one of his masterpieces because I think this album is an escape from the. You know how psychedelia became too excessive.
Yeah,
I would wonder if this is like an escape from that.
it is because he didn't want to. he could have gone that route. He could have gone heavier and joined the club with Cream and but he went folk because he just did 3 albums that were rock for him. But I can't imagine Dylan ever being hard rock like Cream or Hendrix. And I guess he
Right.
didn't even go in that direction. I think he just felt like I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So it's a fast-paced song with great harmonica opener, nice fast bass line, a simple chorus. They stay on one chord the whole time. It's
Mm-hmm.
a nice steady drum beat. It's just amazing how they stay on one chord the whole time.
Well, and for people who don't know music, Cheech, explain that. What
So
does that mean?
you're just strumming an E chord, dun 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 dun. Maybe different rhythms, but you don't. He doesn't change. He doesn't go to a C or a B to the 5 to the 4. He just stays on one chord, which is
And
like
correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he famous for his open E chord strummings and stuff,
yeah,
and open E tuning?
yeah, oh yeah. He got from the Blues guys. He got all that
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, fast drum fills at the end of the song, and cool bass fills at the very end too. So really not a lot going on because they're on one
No,
chord.
no, it's
Drums,
just a great song.
yeah, the drums and bass are doing a lot.
And I will say, and again, you'll probably get annoyed with me, but you know how we mentioned Rush and like Joe will get. I'm just kidding. Joe doesn't get annoyed, but he'll be like, "Oh, not again, guys." But Springsteen was taking notes for his
Oh,
Nebraska album.
a
This
lot of
song, I'll be honest with you, I would make the argument that this album was the one that inspired Nebraska. So you should listen to Nebraska, Cheech, when you get a chance. And after this like comparison with John Wesley Harding.
Bruce Springsteen one. Yeah, he's the man. He's Dylan on the next level, like in the
Mm-hmm. He
late
took
70s. About in the late 70s.
you know how you just said that Dylan like can't be one of the hard rockers or like the rockers. He does what Dylan couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly.
The E Street Band. So
he took Dylan to the next level. I think
yep.
and he's one of the greatest performers. 4-hour shows, running around. I mean, the boss.
Talk about dude,
Legion.
and he could do it all. Harmonica. He is an underrated solo guitar player, which he kind of neglected because he focused on his singing and stage presence. But he's underrated, and his band, dude, he's sort of similar to Dylan's session music. I feel as though if Dylan was close with his session musicians, he could have formed a band like the E Street Band,
Yeah,
where
either the musicians didn't want to play with him. I think they got fed up with it. I don't think it was.
Dude, Levon Helm quit. He was like, "I'm not playing with you."
I think Dylan wanted that. He wanted a Bruce Springsteen. These guys were like nuts. Even Al Stewart was gone. I mean,
Yeah, but one that surprised me was Mike Bloomfield, where he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna go back to my old band."
Al Cooper, he formed Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So they were all kind of getting kind of bored with them, or like he was like, he must have been a pain in the ass to work with. He was.
I think so. I think so.
He wasn't really a schooled musician. He would just say C to G to D to F. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and huh? And I'm gonna do.
Wait, what key are you in, boys?
Al, you just sent me the thing with Al. I keep saying Al Stewart. It's Year of the Cat. Al Cooper.
Yeah.
Goes over to the keys. Doesn't know how to turn it on. The bass player.
So funny. It's so funny.
And a friend of mine at the temple, the customer says, he sent me this thing that when he read a thing where they got a specialist who knew about what the 60s studio looked like, and they made it exactly like a 1960s studio from every detail, in the movie. So they reconstructed it to be authentic.
Well, you know what's funny, and you would I'm like you, and I'm sure you would understand this. Like I've watched so many rock music documentaries that I could kind of like picture what the Columbia studios look like, and then when I saw the movie, that's what I always saw. I'm like, that's so cool.
Oh, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Um, Dear Landlord. So this is interesting song. There's a couple of fun facts in here that maybe you don't know, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
Now
Go.
Grossman, I don't know if he stopped managing him after this because there's a lot of attention with him,
Mm-hmm.
Grossman.
Mm-hmm.
So is Bob Dylan addressing an issue with Albert Grossman? And literally, Bob was renting a house from Grossman in Woodstock. He was renting a house from the guy. Um, the record company and Grossman were pushing him to put out more material, and that pissed him off because you can't push Bob Dylan. Um, or the song is about Bob Dylan, Bob Dylan asking God for forgiveness, asking God not to judge him for his sins.
Right.
Each of us has our own gifts, uh, and that could come from the Corinthians 7:7. But each of us has our own gift from God. Um, in that or the Romans 12:6, we have a different gift according to the grace given to us. Maybe, and it's also a reference to maybe John Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath influence because Woody Guthrie
Mm.
loved Steinbeck and he turned Dylan on to
Right. Right.
lot in there. I don't know how you
That's
feel.
fantastic. Yeah, it has like a gospel vibe to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Musically, nice piano opener by
Yep.
Dylan. Dylan's playing piano. Great bass. Uh, I love his tone, steady rhythm, nice chord progression, passionate vocals. He's singing. He's starting to get into that singing that we
Yeah.
talked about. It has a Beatles vibe. There's definitely to it.
I was gonna say it has something. This song has something. Yeah, I definitely hear the Beatles vibe for sure.
Great bass fills and piano chords between each verse in a great
Mhm.
chorus. So I don't know if he did that on purpose to kind of like because him and the Beatles they really admired each other. They were like a rivalry team.
Yep.
They you like you like somebody, but you hate somebody at the same time, but you really like them. That's how I kind of feel how the Dylan felt about the Beatles. I think the Beatles genuinely liked Bob Dylan. I
Yeah.
would.
I mean, it's fine with the Beatles. Since they were from England. I know when and we already talked about it, but I think they were disillusioned with Bob a little bit, especially John, because
Yeah.
he was one of his heroes, and their meeting did not end well.
Well, John Lennon,
And
they were similar in their
well,
attitude.
maybe that was the issue. They were very similar. And by the way, those two also had a habit of making people not like them,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I don't know. I don't know. And also, as a side note, George Harrison went to San Francisco, the height Ashbury scene.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you know about this. He came away very disillusioned.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. What he saw instead was,
Uh,
not what he pictured. Not like
yeah.
the flower power peace
It
music
was
scene, but
it wasn't what people thought it was. It was a lot of poverty, a lot of homeless people, a lot of crime.
right,
You know,
right,
opposite of that. It was more of a myth. Because the dead came out
right,
of there. Certain sections were like good. But some of it was not good. Um.
right.
Okay. I'm a lonesome hobo.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the next one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And I will say this one and Down Along the Cove are like I think the most blues songs.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm a lonesome hobo. So basically, hobos traveling by train throughout America, offering his services to farms to earn money. Now, this is something that people did do. I researched this in the 20th century, 1900s, early 1900s, to make money, um, to survive. And there's also a Jack Kerouac influence in here.
Mhm.
And there's also a Cain and Abel Book of Genesis influence in here.
And now that's the one I side with most and see.
You see it? I did not trust my.
100%.
I carried him to blame, which led me to fatal doom. I
Mhm.
wandered off in shame. Hold
Because
no
you know
grudge.
what you know what happens in the Bible with Cain,
Yeah, he killed his brother.
and God pretty much. Do you know what like God makes him do?
I don't remember.
So I always see this song as I'll be honest with you. Well, it can be taken in many ways. So obviously, like, it's not. You know, whatever. Like mine's not. But I see Cain in this, and look what happens. After he kills his brother, the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer, by the way, lonesome hobo. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." And then Cain says to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear." And I'll leave it at that. But I think this song is about that.
About total, yeah, it's about Cain.
Mhm.
And Cain, Lucifer was a descendant of Cain. From what I read in different books and stuff like that.
Mm.
Uh, so Cain was pretty evil.
Yeah.
Uh, and the Jack Kerouac, I don't know. He was a poet, author.
Wait, have you read? You know what's funny with the Beat Generation? I've dabbled, but I'm not. Have you read his works?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a little bizarre, But I've seen
Mm,
some of his poetry with like, uh, I don't know, a piano in the background, just noodling and stuff like that. Yeah,
right,
and I think maybe it's the meter of the way he's singing. It's Jack Kerouac. There's definitely a Jack Kerouac.
right.
In,
Well, no, it's obvious, and also Ginsberg too.
yeah,
Ginsberg. I'm sorry.
yeah. So anything else on that before I go to the music?
No, let's talk about the music. The music is interesting.
Gotta keep holding this up because um, I'm a lonesome hobo music. Great chords in the beginning. Has it to me? You're gonna laugh. It has a Led Zeppelin vibe. I don't know. In a weird,
Ooh, wait, really?
in the acoustic Zepp world, Don't.
Let me now listen to that.
I don't know why I don't know why I wrote that, but great harmonica solo. Could you play it or no? Or we would get. Or Dylan is one of those.
I'll be honest. I'm kind of nervous because I was reading online, dude. They copyright.
Sorry, sneeze.
And it could be the case that we might have. I'm kind of worried about I played that snippet of Led Zeppelin because I was looking online,
Yeah.
and Led Zeppelin notorious for like you can't upload videos if you use their music. So now I'm kind of worried.
Oh wow. But
So annoying.
it was such a good point though, because I heard that funky part in my head, and you.
I know.
Like,
I hope they don't do that, but
nah, I think you played it for literally 5 seconds.
yeah, yeah.
But it was such a thing that I was trying to get my point to you and Joe that no, it's funk, and you guys were like, no, it's rock, and I'm like,
Yeah,
listen,
no, no, and then I heard it. Yeah, so
and
I never thought I would hear that.
I couldn't express it. It's something that had to be heard.
Right, right.
So it has a Zepp vibe, great harmonica solo right away, great lyrics, passion in his voice. So he's singing again with passion. Nice
Hmm.
groove, great chord changes, great harmonica solo between verses, steady drums. I think it's his best harmonica solo yet out of
Mm.
everything, in my opinion. I really, really think he did one of his best harmonica solos. Out of all, because it's different. It's not the same. A lot of his harmonica solos do sound similar, but he kind of
Right, right.
does something different on this. So anything else on that song?
No, no, pretty good. Good song.
Now this could be taken when I first was listening to it. I was thinking about the world we live in. I was like,
Yeah, it's funny. I literally I knew you were gonna say that.
You know, and it's not. This is biblical. This is right out of the
Right,
Bible.
right. Leviticus.
So if you don't know the Bible and you hear "I pity the poor immigrant," you're like, "Oh shit, ICE is coming." You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
You know what's funny? Well, pause right there. It's funny. I knew you were gonna say that, and then that's what I thought when I was listening to this song in preparation for this show. I pity a poor immigrant. I'm thinking, oh wow, this is now ISIS and
Yeah,
what's going on?
it's right now. You know what's going on.
Right. But Bob Dylan is referring to something else.
Completely something else. And somebody might, who doesn't know the Bible, because so the lyrics is a reference to the book of, say that because I'm gonna say it wrong. Leviticus.
So it's yeah. So event for all my fellow listeners that don't know their religion, which is okay. That's I love to
Yeah.
always talk about it, but it's the third book of the Torah, the Pentateuch, which is like the first 5 books of Moses. So it's the third book. It's called Leviticus.
Yep.
Called Leviticus, and there's a lot that goes on in there. I guess we'll explore that in the.
I read a little bit about it. It's insane. It's
Awesome.
great. It's
Awesome.
Old Testament stuff. The empathetic to the plight of immigrants. Prosper to strive. They prosper to strive. They prosper to strive for evil, lying, cheating, greed, self-loathing, ruthless. God punishes those who do not obey the 10 Commandments, turning them into immigrants and casting them into the threatening environment. And the speaker of the song is Christ. I just have to blow my nose. I'm sorry. The allergies just kicked in on me. It's so weird.
Dude, that was me. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. That was me yesterday.
Like all of a sudden, I feel
I was
like.
trying to hide it, and I lost my voice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it came back just in time for the show, but yeah, dude, that was me yesterday.
I think it's from speaking, all day.
Well, yeah, that's what it is. But I've realized as I get older, I guess these allergies affect my voice, like,
Yeah.
or when I get sick. It's kind of annoying, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So the speaker of the song is Christ. How do you feel about that?
Dude, you know what's funny? How you said that? Totally see it because, well, just to start it off the bat really quick, I pity the poor immigrant who wishes he would have stayed home, who uses all his power to do evil, but in the end is always left so alone. So, and again, you'd think that he'd be talking about like our current situation, but no, in actuality, and I love how you said that's like sort of like the voice of Jesus, because all along the Gospels, you hear him say these type of lines where go ahead.
There wouldn't have been an immigrant problem. Not that it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem because I come from immigrant family. You come from immigrant family.
Sure.
Like everybody's an immigrant. That's the whole thing in the world. I'm not going to get
exactly.
Americans, they were here.
No. Well, even the Native Americans are immigrants because they came from somewhere.
When everything was connected, they came from where do they come
as the
from?
theory goes.
Yeah. But America, everybody comes from Ireland, Italy, Spain, Cuba, Guatemala. It's when people. I'm not gonna get political. I'm just gonna say,
But it's funny, but Dylan here is not talking. Again, I make the argument that he's not talking about he's talking about.
There wouldn't have been an immigrant problem in 1969.
No, not at all. No, not at all. And if anything, when he says, "I pity the poor immigrant who wishes he would have stayed home, who uses all his power to do evil." Now check this verse. And I love how I'm convinced that this is Leviticus. If not, it's Dylan's take on Jesus' words and stuff like this. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 37, Jesus has this famous line where he says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often have I longed to gather your children together?" Because, by the way, they're immigrants, right? "As a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were not willing. And then you read that line again in the first stanza. I pity the poor immigrant who wishes he would have stayed home, who uses all his power to do evil, but in the end is always left so alone. So
Leviticus, right? Is that Leviticus?
Leviticus and Jesus' words. This is
It,
another hidden Bible
genius,
song.
genius. How does he do it? And then
For years, I don't think people realize this.
and even Dylanologists can't figure this out because unless they study the Bible, we're lucky. You know the Bible, like you're a master of the Bible. Like I know,
Oh, thank you, Cheech.
I know the bad. I know, I know the Bible, but I know the Gnostic Bible better, which is not, it's not a part of the real Bible. I can tell you crazy stuff about that because I studied that for years. Complete opposite of what we're talking about. But I've also, I know the Bible pretty well, but not like you. Like you're killing it, man. Definitely, it's amazing.
Well, you mentioned you laid the seeds because I'm looking at the song now. I'm thinking, dude, and just to bring it all back home, no pun intended. I mean that's not
Yeah,
pun, but the final stanza: I pity the poor immigrant who tramples through the mud, who fills his mouth with laughing. And again, he's talking about what Jesus would sort of say about Jerusalem. And
yeah,
then he who builds his town with blood, because by the way, Jerusalem in a way, when Jesus was sort of like fighting with the Pharisees
yeah,
and the Herodians and the Sadducees, they pretty much built that town sort of in blood, whose
yeah,
visions in the final end must shatter like the glass. I pity the poor immigrant when his gladness comes to pass. Once again, it's like, you know,
yeah.
if it's not Leviticus, it's definitely the voice of Jesus hidden.
Yep. He who eats but not satisfied, he who hears but does
Mm-hmm.
not see, he who falls in love with wealth, um, that's a bad thing. Uh, he who falls in love with wealth turns his back on me. Book of Leviticus. Um, Let me see. God's role in creation of children. Having children is a blessing from God. Leviticus,
Mm-hmm.
Moses, just to throw some, top names in there. Moses, Jacob,
Yeah.
Isaac, Noah, Abraham, all the cats. They're all
All
in
those
there.
little big names.
You know.
And dude, actually, the line you read where I pity the poor immigrant, again, he's not talking about our current situation with immigrants. He's talking about a different kind of immigrant, but whose strength
Yeah.
is spent in vain, whose heaven is like iron sides, whose tears are like rain. And look at this, who eats but is not satisfied. If you go in the Gospels,
And that's what
in John, good.
that's what I said. I said that.
No,
That's one of
and I'm going to prove it to you. That's what Jesus says. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger. Whoever believes in me will never thirst.
yeah, yeah.
This is Jesus speaking for sure.
Genius, man. I have a little bit more. The idea of corruption of a person, from humble means who finds themselves in a
Mhm.
position of power and uses that power to do evil. Man who falls in love with wealth turns his back on God, pretty much. And
Yeah.
it's and I
And that's a warning Jesus says to the wealthy.
yeah, yeah.
And
I wish.
and the wealth. Do you know the story of the wealthy rich man that wishes to follow him?
Oh, he gives up everything and he becomes
Well, no. Jesus. So this rich young man, who by the way
yeah,
could be the immigrant here, but
yeah,
this rich young man tells Jesus, I want to follow you. What do I got to do? Jesus says, go sell everything you have and go follow me. And then he goes away sad. I can't do that. So that what
yeah.
Jesus would say. I pity the poor immigrant. Like
You just
I pity
that's
you.
in Jesus of Nazareth, the movie. That's a great scene.
Yep,
I don't know.
yep, yep. Oh, that's taken from the Gospels, straight.
Right, right. I remember that scene, and I think that's the best Jesus movie for me personally. Jesus of Nazareth.
100. I
I
mean, I saw. You know, it's funny. I saw the whole thing. I think I have like 10 minutes left. I'm actually going to show some of my classes as an aside.
oh,
I think
it's
it's wonderful, right?
a great Easter show because it's not graphic or anything like the Last
Yeah.
Temptation or the other one. The Temptation of Christ would be
Passion.
the Passion of Christ would be too much for kids. Like,
Well,
I
the
can't.
temptation is blasphemous.
No, yeah, I meant to say the past. Like
The
I
Passion of the Christ. Yeah.
remember when we talked about there's only like one movie you can watch once. That's the only I watched it once, and I can't
And
watch
left
it
an impact.
because just like I'm not
Oh,
gonna
oh,
say
oh,
the
you're talking about Passion of the Christ.
yeah I
Dude,
can't.
you know what's funny? I've seen it. Dude, it's one of my favorite films. I've seen it like 10 times, but I'll be honest, every time I watch it, it's so hard. It's
It
probably
bring,
the hardest watch.
it brings me to tears when
Yeah.
I see what he went through during the
Yeah.
crucifixion. For us, now I sound like an evangelist, but for our sins, for us, right? This is Cheech. He's a fucking Aleister Crowley freak. Now, yeah, no,
Oh, he's
Maria.
talking about Jesus. Is he accepting Jesus in his life?
No, I got this guy. I got him right here, and it's
Yes,
not to
sir.
fight off vampires in the night. It's for a reason. I mean, I mean, that scene. There's that scene, and then when Mary and Rob brought this up to me. My brother-in-law, when Mary looks at Jesus on the crucifix, and she sees her son,
I know.
and Rob brought that up, and like when you have a child, like forget the fact that he's the son of God and he's our savior. It's still a mother and son relationship that you're seeing your son
Yep.
suffering.
Yep. Yep.
But for me, I can't. And then there's that creepy Satan person who's
Well, dude, the one of the well, actually, just I want to make 2 points. I know we went on a tangent, but dude, I'm telling you, like, Passion is one of my favorite films. Like, it's
yeah,
the for a Catholic, obviously, must watch. But even if you want to understand Jesus, must watch. And then what you said about the mother aspect, that one of the most heartbreaking scene. I dare people to watch this and not cry. The
yeah.
scene where Jesus carrying the heavy cross, he starts to fall. And mind you, he keeps getting whipped by the Romans and thrown
Yeah.
abuses by the crowd. His mother runs to him, and then Mel Gibson does a flashback when he falls as a child, and Mary runs to him.
Oh, dude,
So devastating, dude. I can't even watch. I gotta be careful when I watch that because I
right,
can't even.
that yeah, maybe that was the scene Rob was talking about. Yeah, because I remember.
It might be. Well, Rob's
Yeah,
brilliant. Both
yeah,
those scenes are
yeah.
devastating.
Oh man, it's just yeah. Oh, and having a child, it's even like I
Mhm.
can't watch it. Jesus of Nazareth, I grew up with that. That was like big '70s, late '70s thing. The
Right.
guy, I mean, Jesus didn't look, the Renaissance painters painted him to look a certain way. He was more dark skinned,
Mhm.
probably, but in my
You know, it's
eyes,
funny, but I argue. Well, Cheech, just a little side note. See, I argue kind of differently, and I mean, I'm sorry, everybody. We're not evangelists. We're just.
I agree with you because I grew up looking at Jesus with these beautiful blue eyes and the
Right,
long hair, and the guy who played Jesus of Nazareth. It's like Jesus. It's like looking at Jesus.
dude. It's haunting.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I see Jesus in him.
but in the reality, he was from the Middle East, so he definitely would have been. I don't know. I don't know if everybody in the Middle
Okay,
East is
let me
dark
let me
skinned.
throw let me throw let me throw let me throw like a monkey wrench at that because,
I knew a dude
and
from
obviously, but
Palestine or a dude from Jordan. He had light skin, so it doesn't
yeah.
mean it's interesting. I don't know. We're getting Jesus crazy now.
Well, just a 1 10 second thing, and we'll stop being the evangelist here. But there's an image, Cheech. I think you know it. There's an image, and under it says, "Jesus, I trust in you." Do you know? Have you seen that image before?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Where Jesus is sort of like, and then like a blue and red ray are coming out of his
Hmm.
heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so that image was the Jesus that came to a certain Polish nun. And Jesus told this nun, "You are to see how you're looking at me. You are going to commission a painting so people know what I want and what I look like. If you look at that painting, that's the face of Jesus. One more thing, the Shroud of Turin.
Oh,
You heard of the Shroud of Turin?
oh,
So
I studied
if
that.
you look at that image, if you look at the X-ray, and you compare it to that painting that's the
Yeah,
Polish nun, Saint Faustina Kowalski, by the way, her name is. In
yeah.
the 1920s, Jesus came to her, and she commissioned a painter to paint the image. And she was so meticulous; she was not satisfied with the painters until he got it, and she still wasn't satisfied. But if you look at that image, and you can watch a YouTube video on this, the image on the shroud and the painting are almost uncannily alike. And you look at Jesus, he's sort of like you see him in Jesus of Nazareth. So I'm just gonna throw it out there.
In my thing, I studied the Shroud like crazy. I watched everything. There's a guy named oh God, John
That's a
Allegro.
great field of study. That's a great field of study. Like so
Yeah.
much cool things about that.
And then I told you about this movie, In Search of Prehistoric Jesus. Check that out. In Search
Right.
of.
Oh, I think that's on Amazon. Yeah, I love that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you might not like it because it gets into the esoteric stuff, but he did travel. I think he didn't he left Jerusalem and he did travel around. I think the world or wherever. Uh, but in my opinion, I'm just gonna say this quick. John Allegro and all these guys studies on the shroud and oh yeah, who said it came from the Middle Ages? Leonardo did a Photoshop. No, they proved there was pollen on the shroud
Exactly.
that goes back to the cave. So that is real. It's real. It really happened.
That's what I'm saying.
An
Yep,
X.
yep.
So that was always like whenever I wouldn't, not. I'm not saying I never had faith, but whenever I would like doubt myself, I'd say, "Nah, the shroud is real, man. That's real. That's
Exactly.
real."
No, and it's real. And by the way, you should watch the recent evidence. Now it's confirmed
Yeah,
without a doubt. Like all those myths that those debunking are all false.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, they were all they. That was just people. They
And it's crazy because if you look at the X-ray of that image,
yeah.
no offense, that doesn't look like a Palestinian man. Like I tend to disagree with that. And again, I'm not making it about race, but I'm kind of upset when people say, oh, they assume this and they assume that, and then they rip into certain images. And I feel like that's
No,
kind of careful with that because
you could see the holes in the hands, the holes in the feet, the crown,
yeah,
the blood
yeah,
that was dripping. I mean,
yeah,
it's real. We'll get off this topic because we might have some
yeah.
haters, we might have
Okay.
some listeners.
And by the way, speaking of evangelists, let's move on to the wicked. And I think you did the music right for
Yeah.
the last song.
Yeah,
I pity the poor immigrant. Did you talk about the music?
no, we got into the
Okay,
whole, but we are. But
do music, and then we'll jump into the wicked messenger.
me and Manny are, Roman Catholics, and we love Jesus, and it's
I know.
I like the esoteric stuff too, but always in my
Yeah,
heart,
I entertain it. I think it's interesting.
yeah, I'm always a true believer in Jesus. That's the guy you got to be on that side. Uh,
Yes,
I,
sir.
I pity the poor immigrant. Nice harmonica intro, and the drums kick in. Um, the slow ballad, nice pre-chorus, simple country bass line, harmonica in between the verses, another harmonica ending. So pretty simple.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're not at the 2 hour mark yet, but I worry about my phone. The Wicked
I know.
Messenger. Here we go.
I know. I'm gonna stay quiet on this one, but I will say
Here,
another. This is like the Bible side.
this is this might be one of the best episodes like we've done with biblical stuff. I mean,
I'll be honest with you.
Blonde
Yeah,
gets,
this might be the
Blonde,
Holy Week episode.
yeah, Blonde gets that way too. But
Yeah.
the Wicked Messenger. Dylan was studying the Bible. Obviously, he was studying the Bible. Really studying the
Hmm.
Bible, like he was studying folk music and music. It's about a character, a wicked messenger who has been sent by Eli, a priest in the book of Samuel. Dylan is the messenger. He brings, Dylan is the metaphor as a messenger. The messenger brings harsh truths. Eli was more of an intellect figure in the Old Testament. And you could talk about him in a minute. He felt he had been. Dylan felt he had valued rationality too highly over spirituality. The Book of Samuel is in this song. It's a series of books that is the history of the Israelites and explains God's law for the Israelites under the guidance of the prophets. I think I might have gotten something.
Yeah, I will say, just to keep this under 2 hours, I'll leave it at what you just said, 'cause that was brilliant. I mean, I will not shut up about, first of all, Samuel. Dude, Samuel was the one that picked the king of the Israelites, Saul, and eventually David. So,
Yeah.
and I'll leave it at that, because I'll go more into Eli. Eli was the one that, when Samuel was a little baby, when Samuel grew up, he was at pretty much Eli kind of trained him. And so, and again, I'll leave it at that, because I will not shut up about it. But the wicked messenger is, it's like the Old Testament song form.
Yeah. I mean, who does this? Like, this is genius. He doesn't get enough credit. Like, we should publish a book on this. Like how Dylan needs to get more credit on reading the Bible and making stories out of it. There's got to be two crazy people like us who've done this already, who've analyzed this, right? Who picked this out.
There has to be. There has to be.
We can't be the first people to be doing this, right? That have analyzed the Bible.
There has to be someone else.
I mean, because this is like groundbreaking, genius stuff that he's doing. Way over Pert's head. I hate to say that. I hate to say that. Pert's writing some great.
Well, the problem is that Pert was, no, for sure, and Pert was following again. Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, if anything,
like,
it's kind of hard to go back to Pert's lyrics.
Ever. And Pert is like using Steinbeck, Ayn Rand, Hemingway, and putting lyrics in there. But this is something deeper. This is some deep shit that's like in the Bible. And if I didn't have you as like the interpreter who knew the Bible, I would know a little bit about it. But you're breaking it down to facts. You're giving the facts. I'm giving my interpretation from Dylanologist and my own personal interpretation. But you're finding the facts. So like we're on to something here. I mean, not being cocky or saying, no, yeah, me and Cheech and Manny are breaking. We discovered something. No, this is like insanity now. This episode. This might be the most like intellectual, religious episode we've ever done, because every song is like we're breaking it down. I don't know what's left, but it's crazy. I mean, and it's like Lent and stuff. It's like a real,
yeah.
So, geez, crazy stuff, man. I'm just, sitting here.
Books of Samuel too, and again, like we could do like a whole 3 hours exploring this, like how the character in the song is around the wicked messenger who's sent by Eli. And again, Eli was the one who ended up training the prophet Samuel, and he has his whole another story. But eventually, Samuel will be one of the important early prophets of God that ends up choosing Israel's first king, Saul, and then eventually King David. This song is very interesting.
Church bells in the back are ringing.
Right on cue.
God. Okay. Did I do the music? I did the music, because I'm getting like really like crazy with this. Did I do the music?
So, do the music now. I think you haven't done the music yet.
Okay. Nice riff under the melody, nice groove. Um, it's like a reoccurring riff that's being played in every verse, harmonica over the main verse.
Mm-hmm.
Great passionate vocals in melody, nice guitar strumming. Um, it must be hard to sing and play that riff. You know the riff I'm talking about that he's playing? I don't know how he's
Mm-hmm.
playing that and singing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like doing a Geddy Lee type of thing. He's playing this
Yeah,
intro,
yeah,
which is like he's growing as a guitar player now. As in, Dylan is growing
yeah,
as a musician, playing piano. He's doing intricate riffs. As we get into
yeah,
Nashville Skyline, there's that instrumental where he
yeah.
you know plays on. So he's like hanging with like the real country players. So unbelievable. I'm just blown away by this whole episode, man. It's crazy. It's like we chipped away at something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So hopefully this won't have any religious stuff in it. So down
No,
along
hopefully not. But it's the most blues sound song, Down Along the Cove.
yeah. A man. Oh, this is weird. I don't know. This is like the opposite of everything we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
A man greets a woman, his true love. The second verse, he sees a bundle of joy. She is happy to see him. So the true love is the one he loves, but the bundle of joy is like his side woman.
Right.
The third verse, they walk away happy. The first verse is one woman, the second verse is another woman. And they're being in a relationship with two women. Who does he walk away with, the lover or the wife? Verse in the first verse, it's his true love. Second, bundle of joy. The third verse, everybody watches us go by, knows we're in love.
Mm.
They understand. So the third verse, he goes away with the girlfriend because the people understand.
Mm.
Now I've known people who had had a wife and had a girlfriend, and they had two cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and that's hard to do.
Right.
I don't know how they pull off, And how do you do it if you go out in public without people seeing you, and especially if you're married?
Right. I know.
I know this one dude at the temple. He had two cell phones. He was married, and I was like, "What?" Yeah, I got one for the girlfriend, and I'm like, "Wow!" I'm like, "How do you pull it? How do you pull it off,
Dude? How do you do that? Like,
I mean,
you must be a genius at manipulating.
Going bowling tonight, and then you're going to be with your girlfriend, and then you're actually the girlfriend doesn't have a boyfriend because she thinks you're
Right.
her. And then that usually leads to horrible things like breaking up a marriage, destroying a family, destroying a woman's head.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
right?
that's awful. Dude, I'll be honest with you. I can never, like, let's say in the song, I could never just. I don't know how you feel about destroying a marriage. I mean,
dude,
like if you end up like let's say like you had your like it's funny. Down Along the Cove is about that, isn't it? Like it's classic blues sort of like theme, but
anyone who destroys a marriage.
Let's say like if you had a girlfriend at the temple, and then you meet another girl, kind of falls on you. You discover is married, has 3 kids, and you decide to pursue the married woman, destroy the marriage, dude. I don't know, man. Like that's horrible.
And usually, what happens is you destroy the marriage, and then what happens is you get with the girl, and guess what? You break up because it's not fun anymore. You got the girl.
And that's the I hate to put it like this, but delicious irony. Like there's something like like I don't know, not horrible, but like that's the fun. And then once that's done, and then you just move on.
I'm not judging the world, but I think more and more people are doing this, living this way with a girlfriend. In the marriage. Going on?
No, it's definitely no. You're right.
I always said to myself, like, once I got married, I was married, especially to my first wife. I'm like, this is it.
Which is how it should be.
And I used to say, that's why God made, back in the day, magazines. So you don't cheat. You know, before the cell phone. Your kids aren't going to watch this. We're like 1:30 in, but you know, and I'll tell you a story off camera about having magazines when you're married, and the wife's always like, that's a healthy thing, because if you didn't have magazines, you'd be out there trying to get the real thing, So, but yeah, I think anyone who destroys a marriage, who has a side piece and breaks the marriage up, not a good look. It's bad. It's a bad thing, and
Yeah.
I've seen it happen to many people, and it destroys not only destroys the kids, it destroys the person who loves you, who trusts you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still going on. It's going on. Will never end. 100 years from now, that'll still be happening. Now I think more than ever, guys might have 4 girlfriends and be married and have 4 cell phones because it's so easy now, to go onto a site and just meet a girl and get her number and hook up. And, back in the day, you had to like meet somebody at work, or, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Now you just go to a girl's Instagram and, well, that's why they have OnlyFans. So maybe people are loyal. I don't know. But anyway, I told Devontae.
And essentially, that's what the song's about, right? The song, essentially.
Yeah, a man in his side piece, which man always did.
Again, I think that's a classic, and that's a classic blues theme.
Yeah, guys always did, back then. But the guys back in the day never left their wives. I'm talking about maybe Italian mafia type guys.
Right. Like the Godfather types, where they'll probably be cheating with a woman behind their back, but not leave their wives.
They called it your gumad. You had your gumad on the weekend, and then you had your wife. But the problem is, you paid the gumad off, and you bought her stuff, and then she became obsessed with you. Oh, I just saw Fatal Attraction. What they look like now was a picture of them back in the day, and then now they're all old. Cause Glenn Close was so hot back in the day. Now she's like an old lady, and the other lady's old, and what's his name? The guy in Fatal Attraction. My brain is killing me. The great actor. What's his name? Michael Douglas.
Sharon Stone.
Yeah, Sharon Stone. She got
so
old.
Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas.
They compared the old to now, and they're all old and stuff. But that's a great example. Fatal Attraction is a great example of this song. What could happen if you meet the wrong woman and you're married?
Right. And Douglas had that other. Remember Fatal Attraction? The psychologist. I mean, no offense. Like I would have. He chooses the girl that's gonna kill him.
And she was so evil.
And that's a great metaphor for a guy that pursues. Oh yeah.
Say what you're gonna say.
No, I was gonna say that's what the point you made, where there was that psychologist girl he was seeing, which, by the way, I mean, but then he goes for the one again. This is what you were saying with, if a guy goes for a woman that's married, the thrill is not getting caught, and he likes that thrill of that girl that's kind of dangerous, femme fatale type.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, it's a problem in the world now because of the internet. Yeah. Everybody's cheating. I would bet. I would definitely, if there was
Cheech.
Yeah.
It's Fatal Attraction.
It's total. And I almost think I deserves that shit. Deserves a Fatal Attraction if you're gonna cheat, because that's how loyal I was, man. Yeah. I'm loyal as a dog, in both my marriages, and and I had plenty of opportunities, and sometimes I kick myself in the head, but I was just like, nah, I'm gonna be loyal. But if I was Robert Plant in 1971, that's a different story. Anyway. So we won't.
You'd be singing You'd be singing what's the final track on Physical Graffiti? Sick Again.
Yeah. Or what about Lorena Bobbitt? That's the epitome of Fatal Attraction. So
Oh, 100%.
look out. You mess around, they're coming.
It's it's so funny how we went from like Jesus to talking about
The guy
Fatal Attraction.
cut off.
By the way, this is what the show's about, folks. We jump.
And that's the beauty of it. And I know Joe Zolkman's laughing right now.
And by the way, we're keeping it G and PG rated because for all the audience out there.
Yeah, I think they're by 1:30. I don't know, 1:37, and I'm gonna freeze up.
I think they're checked out.
We'll move along.
Yeah. So okay, now we'll finish with the last track, quick, which is a lovely little love song.
Did I do the music to this one? Down by the Cove.
Oh, good. Yeah, go ahead. Down Along the Cove, which is the blues.
Funky 60s vibe, funky bass. It's the epitome of like that 60s kind of song, Blues bass, 12-bar blues, great beat, great pedal steel guitar. I love the pedal steel playing by Peter Drake.
Yeah, I love the pedal.
It's great. Damn, harmonica outro. He only has them on 2 songs, so this one and then the one I'm about to go into, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight.
Mm-hmm. But they make such an impact on the music. It's amazing.
And once again, using a pedal steel, going back to my theory, he's starting, country rock. He's innovating country rock because the pedal steel is country, and he's putting it into rock. So Bob Dylan, in my opinion, is a innovator on maybe this album is the ending because it's going into Nashville Skyline. The last 2 songs could be on Nashville Skyline, maybe, with the pedal steel. They innovated country rock.
Yeah.
I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, not the Whitney Houston song. Or whoever did that song. This one, this could be kind of in the same vein about a man and a woman. He's a domineering man. Everything he says is an instruction. He tells the woman to do things. Shut the light, shut the door. Don't be afraid. You won't regret it. Have no fear. Kick your shoes off. Seems like the woman is not sure about him. Does she want to be there? Is it an affair? Is she not sure? So on the same theme of our Fatal Attraction, is it like a guy and a girl have a relationship? It's very flirtatious, and they work together, and then they finally go to the hotel room, and the guy's all like, "Yeah, take your shoes off, do this, put that on," and the girl's kind of like, "Oh, I'm married. I don't know. I got to be home in an hour because the kids are gonna be home." Or is this a date rape song? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I know. It's funny. I said this just from the music, and I never really took some time to analyze the lyrics, but I said a lovely little love song, and then I'm looking at the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Wait, something else is going on here. Yeah, and Dylan ends the album on this song.
Yeah, I mean, and like, what is he doing? Oh, Joe Silkman sending some presents. Starting my prep work for presents. Love you, Joe.
Shout out to Mr. Joe Silkman.
Already getting ready to do presents. And Zeppelin and Dylan are just like, I mean, it's addicting. Rush is addicting, and we've explored Rush to the, not gonna stop. We're just milking, But I'm glad we found Dylan. These were, because they're an addiction. Dylan is an addiction to me. So how do we end this?
And once you get on that Dylan train, it's hard to hop off.
And I think we're groundbreaking, right? This episode is groundbreaking. We biblical stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah.
We're not to do this. People have figured this out, but not in a while. I don't think people aren't talking about this. But
And not the majority. 'Cause I told you, John Wesley Harding gets, first of all, it gets skipped. That's the first problem.
yeah.
And then second, you realize that this is a heavy biblical album. Even songs like All on the Watchtower are biblical.
And the irony is it's about a killer, a horrible outlaw from the West who killed 42 men in lawmen.
John Wesley Harding, right?
Like, what?
I wonder what he's trying to say in that song.
That's absurd.
I know.
Like, he puts the most evil cowboy as the title, and it's a religious album. Absurdism. That's absurdism right there. Music. So what? And I don't want to rush through, but I don't want to freeze up. But what do we say this song is? Is it Fatal Attraction? Is it a date rape song? Is it an affair about to go bad?
I will say, I'm gonna say maybe. Okay, if it follows the song that we just talked about, the song "Down Along the Cove," if it follows that song, it's Fatal Attraction. But if not, it's either, I would argue, so it's either, I'm just going to say DR because I'm not sure, just in case anyone watches past 1 minute and 42 minutes, 1 hour and 42 minutes. Or it's like Houses of the Holy, where Robert Plant, and again, I can't believe Joe couldn't see this, or Joe said he couldn't see like the darkness in House of the Holy, but maybe there isn't any darkness. Maybe Joe's right. Who knows? That's what's so great about music. Yeah. It's sort of similar where this guy, it's not DR, but he definitely has seduced some sort of, young, afraid, I hope not young, but young, afraid woman. And just to read some lyrics here. And again, the song is very interesting. Well, that mockingbird's going to sail away, which is interesting. We're going to forget it. That big fat moon is going to shine like the moon, but we're going to let it. You won't regret it. Kick your shoes off. Do not fear. Bring that bottle over here. I'll be your baby tonight. So yeah. I'm going to lean on Houses of the Holy take.
Now, to kill a mockingbird is the man gets accused of rape, right? In the book.
Yes. Wait a minute. Uh-oh. You finally made a new insight here.
Why is he bringing up a mockingbird?
We just stop here because you made a new insight here.
Yeah. So maybe he is a sick man who wants to do something to this particular person.
And that would be the third take. So,
yeah.
And that would be the third take, right? So, and I lean on like the Houses of the Holy where it starts like, let me take you to the movies, like, yeah. And then slowly gets her alone and slowly, takes advantage of this.
You wind up on Satan's doorstep at the end,
Which, by the way, speaking of the ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest, hello, dude, Led Zeppelin and Bob Dylan, man,
very
a lot of connections.
But anyway, before I'm gonna freeze. 2 hours, damn, almost. I'll be your baby tonight.
So with the previous episode, dude, and with the last episode, it's gonna be like probably 3 hours plus.
So we got like almost 7. We got about 10 hours. Wait, we're gonna have like 12 hours worth of Dylan.
Of Dylan content, yeah. I might 10 hours is crazy.
Yeah. Country vibe again. Beautiful pedal steel guitar, harmonica opening the song. Almost a romantic song. Nice chorus, great country.
Well, see, that's what I thought.
Yeah, steady beat ends with the harmonica.
Because I thought it was a cute little. Love song just based on the beautiful music. It sounds pretty.
It does, but it's not.
And then it's kind of like you read the lyrics, like, maybe not as pretty. I mean, for a guy, we're like, this happens.
I think Mockingbird gives it away.
There's a clue in there, yeah, because that's the line I zoomed in on because he says, "Well, that mockingbird's gonna sail away," and again, that's from the girl's perspective, that's negative.
Yeah. Kill a Mockingbird, So I think it might be from that. So just so I don't freeze, the cover is pretty fascinating.
Mm.
The
Yeah, go
Bob,
ahead. It's a Polaroid picture, which you
yeah,
may have to explain.
yeah. It's in the middle. Okay, he's in the middle with a black cowboy hat on. It's black and white. Jeff Berg took the picture. It was taken in his garden in Woodstock. It was 20 degrees out. It was a Polaroid camera, and they had 3 different shots, and they just used it, and then they enhanced it a little bit, so it looks a little blurry. It doesn't look like a professional shot. You know what I mean? It
Right.
looks like a regular picture that you would just put on there. Um,
And I will
and,
say it looks cheap.
and it was done that way because it's on a Polaroid, and they had 3 different. And then I thought the guys on there were his band. I was like, oh, well, these guys, but they're not. They're
Oh
famous.
no, see, I thought they were Native Americans.
They're what they are is the bowels of Bengal, a tantric bowels of Bengal. They are musicians with a long history in Indian music who lived in Woodstock, and they didn't care about social norms. They just lived the way that they wanted to live, like the epitome of that hippie commune kind of thing.
Right.
Purna Das is the leader of the
Right.
Indian music. And they lived in Woodstock. They played concerts, and they're all gurus. And some say, to end it, that in the picture he's just mocking Sergeant Pepper's. Because there's like 4
Yep,
faces.
yep. Which would make sense because this album is a subversion of all that
Yeah.
excess. But I obviously love Sergeant Pepper, so
Oh
we
yeah,
needed Sergeant Pepper. But Dylan has to be Dylan.
yeah,
And dude, one more thing. I don't know if you have this in your notes, and before we end here, but one of the characters there's a white guy in the back, right? That's
yeah.
Charlie Joy. Get this, a local stone mason and carpenter. Why is that significant? Because Jesus' father Joseph was a stone mason and carpenter.
Wow, wow, dude.
So pretty heavy, pretty weird. Cheap. It looks cheap or looks weird at first glance, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of details going on.
And we picked him out, man. We digging in. We this might be one of the best episodes for like digging into things and
Yeah.
Zeppelin, you don't really dig too much. It's there. Rush, dig a little bit. Dylan is you got to shovel
Right.
and you got to dig, and we've gotten so good
Yeah,
at
yeah.
analyzing Dylan. This is our fourth Dylan album now that we're doing. And now
Fourth one, yeah. And then we'll fifth will be Nashville Skyline.
Nashville Skyline is nothing like this for lyrics. It's all about romance. It's all about
No, it's a complete detour. But I look forward to talk. You know what's funny? I look forward to talking about it because the album is okay. John Wesley Harding is so stark, so haunting, and again, it doesn't help it with the fact that it's biblical too.
yeah.
But Nashville Skyline, like its title, is so warm, so inviting. So I kind of want to talk about that because it kind of is like a kiss off to the '60s before we enter the '70s. So I think
In my
we'll dive in
and hopefully people will explain to me or comment. It's an innovation of country rock. I'm going to send you that Rolling Stone thing again. Rolling Stone had said that, so it's not me. I think a lot of people feel that way, and these last 2 songs are leading into where it's going. And then he just doesn't. I wonder if his manager, if he broke ties with him on the next album. I really got to research that because that was that's also underneath all the biblical stuff. There's some tension going on.
Yeah.
There's
some jabs at Grossman, yeah.
Yeah, which is great. I love when people could do that. Like yesterday in that Led Zeppelin song. What was it? Not 10 Years Gone. Oh, Black Country Woman. It's basically Plant singing to his wife,
Mm.
and I know your sister. There's
Very,
all the
very autobiographical. Yeah.
yeah, and you know what he's trying to say. Like, yeah, I know your sister. You know, so it's like
Right.
it's crazy.
Right.
So, but I don't know, dude. This might be the heaviest episode yet. I mean, Hemispheres was pretty heavy,
Mm.
but we took a ride on this one, man. Damn,
We
crazy.
did. We did. We're still on that Dylan train and going strong.
Yeah. So next
I'll be
up,
honest with you, like, yo, for everyone out there, and for everyone out there, listen to all the albums that we have covered, even the ones before bringing it all back home. Because no offense, even Free Willin' is phenomenal.
oh yeah,
The Times Are Changing is phenomenal. Even his debut is phenomenal, and the reason why, and we talked about it, was on Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. They had a song "In My Time of Dying," which, by the way, Dylan had already covered all those
yeah.
years ago. And talk
Right.
about that Zeppelin Dylan connection. I mean,
Oh, there's a
there's
year.
something there, you know?
Well, they love folk music, so they love Bob Dylan. They know that they maybe never
Right,
admitted it. An influence. Always Joni Mitchell, was
right.
always the girl, and Joan Baez, of course. Paige loved Joan Baez. Uh, but Dylan is
And Miss Joni Mitchell from Canada.
yeah, Joni Mitchell, who hated Bob Dylan. But anyway, dude, this was a full episode, man. I think it might be one of the best ones as far as digging deep.
Likewise, great episode, man.
Yeah, so look forward
Right.
to Nashville Skyline, and I'm gonna start writing presents. We
hmm
got the one coming up. Hopefully, if
hmm
I could get writing, maybe we'll do the Jesus Christ Superstar, or at least talk about the how important
Yeah,
that is. You know, we have to figure out how
I'm
maybe.
telling you, dude. Like, we will get a lot of viewers for that, because that's obviously a popular musical, but just for
Yeah,
the Lent and Holy Week
that's
viewership.
cool.
And
Well,
by the way, this episode I'm gonna subtitle the Bible episode.
totally the Bible episode, and there's a outlaw, the most deadliest outlaw. It's named after John Wesley Harding. The guy killed
Dude,
42.
tell me how we go. Tell me how we go from psychopathic murderous outlaw to Leviticus to Jesus to a DR, which I'm not gonna even pronounce, but
He had
only on the Cheech and Manny Music Show
I
People's
know
Podcast.
all over the map on this place. We go from Paste to the friggin' the Glenn Close movie, Fatal Attraction, in the same
I know
episode.
it's crazy.
Fatal Attraction. I mean, oh my god. So another great episode. And what was the first one? Was that about 2 hours? So this is going to be a 4-hour episode.
I gotta check. I mean, might be. It might be 4. I mean, it's worth it though, because not a lot of people. I mean, John Wesley Harding is talked about, but it should be talked about more,
Yeah, I'm
because
glad.
it's a very underrated album.
And Nashville Skyline too, I think is going to be a good one, because those are two albums
hmm
that need to be known, more. I mean, obviously Dylan fans know it, but more people need to know it and stuff. So,
Yep.
on that note, man, anything to add or?
No, just fantastic episode, and
Yeah,
I loved listening to the album. And if anything, I recommend. Highly, highly recommend. It doesn't end.
yeah, definitely. Keep listening to Bob Dylan. Listen to the first, the 3 electric ones that we did. Now this one where he's back to his acoustic roots, and then we got a bunch of Zeppelin. We got
Yeah,
what was it, Physical coming out, and we'll just keep moving on, man. And
yeah, yeah. Yep.
so
Dude, this is the greatest music. Like, I'll be honest with you, to our audience out there, you need to listen to this music. It's the greatest. Leave your Post Malones, and again, we love Post Malone. We
yeah,
love him, but leave your Post Malones, leave your Kendrick Lamars. You know, listen
yeah,
to Dylan, listen to Zeppelin, listen to Rush. If anything, if you're up for it, but listen to Rush. And I will say, but definitely listen to Dylan, because
yeah.
no offense, John Wesley Harding is a crash course in Bible studies. So
It really is. If you want to learn about the Bible and listen to this episode,
And you want to listen to Catholic,
and go into the Bible and read some of this stuff. That's some great knowledge. You know.
Yeah. And if you want to listen to Catholic prog, Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti.
Oh yeah, In the Light, man.
Yeah, and In My Time of Dying.
Zeppelin wasn't all about the dark Crowley stuff like people think.
No, and I love how on our show we kind of even Joe realized. I feel like Joe realized that too. Like he never thought. He always thought that.
I see my reconnecting. I'm going to just end it with this note. And same thing with Sabbath. Geezer was a Catholic, and wrote a lot of stuff from the Bible, about the Bible, anti-Satan, what they think Sabbath is associated with.
Right.
You got to dig deep into that and see that it's in the lyrics. So, but
right. And in the future, we're definitely going to be covering Black Sabbath's first album. So,
definitely.
Look forward to that.
Yep. All right, Manny.
But Cheech, man, thank you for being on the show, man. This was fantastic. This was a lot of fun. You made me flex my Bible brain part here because I never thought I would need it. And you convinced me to cover this album.
Yeah. I think you should go for your master's in religion, bro.
I know. I got to do another detour. I know. Thank you, Cheech. That's such a high compliment.
You know so much about religion. I'm looking forward to reading this stuff. I see my reconnecting thing, so we'll end the episode. And great job. Probably the best episode we did, man. Peace. And I wish I would see you tomorrow, but can't.
So, Cheech, it's been a pleasure, man.
All right, Manny. Have a good one. And great job.
You too.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.